with you, Josh Brisco, Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you. We'll talk a lot of football today as the Chiefs training camp continues. Indoor practice today with all of the rain and expected to be a shorter practice, so we probably will hear from the Chiefs before 11 o'clock. We'll see whenever they are at the in the tent and we get the sound from the particular individuals that'll be there. Steve Spagnuolo, Rashee Rice, Felix and Udike Uzama, and a name that I can't remember. There is one other that is going to be there that I don't remember right now. But we'll hear from them, all the different players that'll be there. It is Drew Tranquil. Linebacker Drew Tranquil, Rashee Rice, and Felix and Udike Uzama, and Steve Spagnuolo will be at the podium today. We will hear from them. Stephen St. John there in St. Joe, heading up our training camp coverage. It is presented by Barstool Sportsbook, Bud Light, Greengrass Cattle Company, and Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park. We appreciate you joining the zone here. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810. As I mentioned, coming up later on this hour, early 11 o'clock hour, we'll hear from the Chiefs. Coming up at noon, we will hear from Ryan Tracy covering the Chiefs. We'll talk with him, his thoughts on training camp observations so far, and eventually getting to whittling this roster down to 53. There's a little while before they have to get there, but we're already talking about and discussing what could be a numbers crunch on this team with the wide receivers. We know there is no fullback, so that certainly creates a roster opening for the Chiefs to be able to keep an extra wide receiver. The last 3 years, they have kept 6 wide receivers in week one. Do they just simply go the exact same route they've gone, the last few years, only take the fullback away and make that a wide receiver? Certainly, they could do that. They've, had a couple of those years where they only kept 3 running backs. And the expectation is that there's going to be 4 running backs kept this year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon and Pacheco and Deneric Prince doing a lot of things that came out of camp yesterday, running with the ones. And as a quick aside, and we'll talk with Mick Schaefer, who was also at training camp up there in St. Joe in the 1 o'clock hour, get some Learn Funniest Best. A quick aside, and we can get into this and continue to break this down as the training camp continues, but I know there's a lot of talk when somebody says, well, this person's running with the ones. I think everybody is going to be mixed in and running with the ones. So like yesterday, it was Deneric Prince is running with the ones. Yeah, but he's not going to be running with the ones over Pacheco or McKinnon or maybe over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll see. But I think anybody that's going to make the roster offensively is going to have to be running with the ones at some point. So wide receivers, like this guy's running with the ones. Yeah, he'd better be. Because if there's a chance of him making the roster, he's going to have to, run with the ones come regular season. So that is something to keep in mind when we hear like, okay, this guy is out there as a starter. Predominantly what we've seen from training camp so far is that the starters have been MVS, Sky Moore, and Justin Watson. Ross is mixed in. Richie James is mixed in. Rashee Rice mixed in, etc. But we'll see. All of those guys are going to have to make plays, and all of those guys have opportunities to make the team. That's 7 wide receivers I mentioned there. Maybe there's somebody else that comes out of nowhere and steals a roster spot. We'll find out. Reese Fountain a couple of years ago came out of nowhere and was like, hey, this guy's pretty good, and then stole a roster spot. So we'll see if that happens this year. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show. To join us, 913-912-4810. Do want to get the tough news from Chiefs training camp over the weekend out of the way. Najee Johnson is out for the season with a torn ACL. Tore his ACL on Saturday at the indoor portion of practice. Confirmed yesterday that he is having ACL surgery, placed on the reserved injured list, which ends his season. He is out for the year. And Jody Fortson had a dislocation of the shoulder, was popped back in, but that is certainly a concern if that's something that's going to be bothering him, and there's a chance of that thing continuing to pop out of place or, subluxation or things like that with his shoulder. So that is something to keep in mind as the Chiefs with their tight ends. We know Andy Reid loves the tight ends, and if there is no fullback, then maybe they're going to look to have a tight end do a little bit more. And, they've kept 4 tight ends a couple of years. Last year, they only kept 3. The expectation is that they would keep 4 this year. But without Jody Fortson, does that mean Bushman slides in and takes Jody Fortson's spot? Or do they keep 3 and there's an extra wide receiver? As far as Najee Johnson is concerned, that was the Chiefs starting gunner. I know we think of safety and Najee Johnson, and now it's tough, but they've got some depth there. Just starting gunner on special teams. So that's a Dave Toub impact as to now how does he find a replacement for him? Just maybe where Justin Ross and somebody else comes into play as it stands. And also Richie James, as Dave Toub said yesterday or Saturday, one of the days, that Richie James is their punt returner right now. So Richie James is the punt returner. Deneric Prince is the kick returner. Shamari Connor is, as he said, a, quote, accelerated program in special teams because he's already starting in 2 phases. So that was what we heard about Shamari Connor coming out of college was, some things he needs to work on in safety. Premier special teams player could be right away for an NFL team. Okay, well, he's on an accelerated program. Dave Toub already loves him, and he's starting on 2 different spots for the Chiefs right now in special teams. So a couple of updates from the practices over the weekend, and Travis Kelce was just getting ready for the boxing match UFC doubleheader from Saturday is what he was very excited, very in the mood for that, Josh.
He's a multimedia superstar. Over here, this headphone. I'm just gonna go ahead and report an issue, Drake.
Report it.
I got no audio over on this little ear thingy over here. So if you're hearing me now, everything is okay.
I hear you.
You're hearing me, which for once is a positive thing. I don't know exactly what I've fiddled with this little knob over here.
Yeah,
I'm a knob fiddler.
Bump into those controls with.
It's probably over there in Jason's big control board over there.
I'm controlling all these knobs. I got 12 knobs in my hand right now.
Go ahead and just wail on those knobs, and I'll let you know if anything changes on my side.
I'm twisting the knob right now.
But Travis Kelce, multimedia superstar. He's just trying to. Ooh, you right there. Whoa, hey, we're back. We got it in both ears now.
I
got surround sound.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah, I'm hearing myself clearer than I've heard myself in years.
All right.
I'm suddenly more reassured of is this? Oh God, is this what I sound like all the time?
Yeah, unfortunately,
that's too bad.
It is for all of us.
Well, at least I'm not Jack Cochran.
You'd be on the Chiefs if you were.
No, it really would be good, actually. I mean, for Travis Kelce to punch me in the back of the head would honestly be an honor.
It'd be fun.
So that was an unfair shot at Jack Cochran. That makes 2 this week. Hello.
So that's how the show's going to go today, apparently. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. Where would you like to start, Josh? Because there's a lot of things I want to get into and talk about. We could talk about the chippiness if there's anything there with Kelce. He quickly apologized to Andy Reid and some other things that came from that, some injuries. 4th season, hopefully the shoulder is okay. The Najee Johnson thing, I do think, is certainly it's a bigger deal than maybe at first. Like if somebody were to go down with an ACL, that sucks. Anybody were to go down with an ACL. Also, report out of camp, Tommy Townsend is in the tent with looking at his foot. So I would say if there's one thing on Tommy Townsend that you don't want to be injured, it's probably the foot.
It's really high on the list.
If it was like Tommy Townsend's in there looking at his bicep, all good.
Me too, man. You and me both.
Yeah, that's right. In the tent, just looking at biceps. Are they measuring it? Because that dude is jacked. But he is in the tent looking at his foot. So we'll keep you updated on that as well.
To answer your question, I mean, 98% of my life, I do want this show to spend as much time about the Kansas City Chiefs as humanly possible. Certainly that extends to training camp time. But every once in a while, something remarkable happens, and I learn something I did not know throughout my entire sports life up to this point. I just had always assumed that when a player got DFA'd, it meant they were becoming less valuable. And I found out yesterday that's not actually true if you're the Royals.
Everybody wants this guy. Everybody wants Taylor Hearn.
Who's not banging on the door for Taylor Hearn?
There are teams at the top of the standings wanting Taylor Hearn. There are teams at the bottom of the standings wanting Taylor Hearn. Everybody wants a Taylor Hearn in your life. Do you have a Taylor Hearn in your life?
I think I'm just looking for all the Taylor Hearns I can possibly find at this point.
Absolutely. Nicky Lopez traded for an arm. Actually, it was just a severed arm. They just traded for a severed arm, and they're hoping to tie it on to some pitcher somewhere, and maybe they can get something out of this actual arm that they traded for. Nicky Lopez.
You ever watch The Addams Family? thing? Just a hand?
Yeah.
Just a hand that just runs around?
I'm
that
aware.
right there. I'll tell you what. Might be the third best arm in the Royals bullpen right now. I don't know. That's too high.
They sent the Royals the package. They open up. What's in the box? What's in the box? It's an arm.
No, it's just an arm.
It's an arm. It's actually
Well,
a
hold on.
left-handed
Is that a
arm.
left-handed arm? Then we'll take it. Yeah,
Yes.
baby.
It's a lefty. It's a lefty arm. You don't have Amir Garrett anymore. You got to have a left-handed arm somewhere.
Amir Garrett got picked up and then traded for a better player at some point in the last couple of weeks, right?
I'm assuming that's the case.
That's what happens to guys who get DFA'd.
Fan favorite. All right, let's start there. Let's do that because there's a lot of Chiefs on the docket that we will be going through today. We talked about some of the updates at training camp. They're inside with the rain. We will hear from the Chiefs. As I said, Steve Spagnuolo, Rashee Rice, Drew Tranquill, Felix, and Udike Uzama will all be there. Ryan Tracy, we'll talk some Chiefs with him. Mick Schaefer, he's at training camp. A lot of Chiefs there. It is the trade deadline. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock Central Time is when the trade deadline happens. So we've got today an off day for the Royals. So the next time the Royals play a game, the trade deadline will have passed. So if Scott Barlow were to be dealt, we've seen Scott Barlow pitch for the last time in a Royals uniform. If Carlos Hernandez were to be dealt, we've seen Carlos Hernandez pitch for the last time in a Royals uniform. This goes on down the line. I can go with every single player there and keep going. And well, if Salvador Perez is traded, we've seen Salvador because there's an off day. They'll play till Tuesday night. But so the trade deadline coming up 5 o'clock tomorrow. We'll see what the Royals end up doing. We'll see how transactional they are going to be. I don't know if this was an indication of just what the trade market was for Nicky Lopez. The frustration comes in not in that they traded Nicky Lopez. It's understandable. It's a business. And if you said Nicky Lopez was being traded, hey, that's fine. Love Nicky Lopez. Hopefully he goes and has some success and is great in Atlanta and wins a ring. Awesome. Good for him. Would love for that to happen for Nicky Lopez. He's a good dude, good clubhouse guy, fan favorite. The issue comes into what we're talking about and the gallows humor. If you don't laugh, you might cry or throw something at the TV or the radio. You don't want to do either of those things because then you have to pay to replace it and there's a monetary fine that comes with the anger issues. You don't want that to happen. On Friday, J.J. Piccolo was talking about a gray area that the Royals are in, a gray area. Is that G-R-A-Y or G-R-E-Y? Does it matter?
I actually don't know. I go back and forth on that all the time.
Always do. My first go-to is A, G-R-A-Y. It's the first one I go to.
Yeah, and I think that's Noah Gray, Sonny Gray. That's the only gray areas that right now the Chiefs are in a gray area. Noah Gray area.
I'm perfectly
been in a
fine
Sonny
with that.
Gray area.
Yeah.
What was the stat? They hadn't homered off him in like 8 or 9 years. That was wild. Just didn't know that. Could have been an LFB thing. Didn't think about it until just now.
It might be mine. I don't know.
Yeah, you can have it, I guess.
That's Sonny Gray.
Let's see if I can find it.
8 or 9 years since that's happened. But a gray area. So here's the quote that people are talking about. There's some teams that are clear. There's J.J. Piccolo on Friday. There's some teams that are clearly adding. They feel like they're going to be in the playoffs. They feel strong about their possibilities and they're strengthening their club and they're not worrying too much about what they're giving up. Then you have a large pool of teams that are in the middle. What we've taken out of it is their objective is to try to acquire players with years remaining on the contract. So if things don't go the way they want this year, they still have something in return for the coming years, which makes it more difficult for us because for a player like that, we'd like to acquire someone that would add to our major league team or near ready for our major league team. When you have guys on major league teams and you're trading them for 3 or 4 minor league prospects and years of control, that's really not the direction we want to go in. So we're in a little bit of a gray area right now when it comes to that type of player. This is fruit from the poison tree because it's the beginning that is the issue. Mm-hmm. Taylor Hearn or whoever, interchangeable, is not the issue. That's all a result of what seems to be, and I would say, what is terrible strategy on the front end. Why is this team thinking about major league ready players or players that are on a major league team or near ready? This team is not near ready.
No!
They barely have major league players themselves. If their roster was put on all these other rosters. How many players from this team end up on a division-winning roster? Take the Twins and the Royals, combine them. How many players on this Royals team end up on the Twins? Take the Yankees and the Royals.
Yeah.
Take the Blue Jays. Not even teams that are in first place. How many of these Royals end up on those rosters? Not many. Why, Josh? Please, can you explain something to me?
Let me explain this.
Why there would be a general manager of a team that swept the Twins to get to 32 wins on the season. It's almost August 1st.
At the end of July, not in 30 wins.
August 1st, the last weekend of July, they finally got to 30 wins.
Yep.
How in the world can somebody look at this team and say, you know, if we're going to trade some players with team control over the next couple of years, we need near-ready or major league players. And you can't do that with teams that are wondering if they're really going to compete this year because they want those guys next year. So really, what are we to do?
What are we to do? Our hands are tied because either we're going to have to settle for guys who aren't going to be on this major league roster in the next couple of years, or God forbid, we're going to have to give up guys who could be a part of someone's contending roster for a couple of years. I can't explain it other than that it sounds really familiar. And I think we've been very generous in terms of, hey, JJ Piccolo, have this season, absolutely the entirety of this season. We got you this offseason, this trade deadline. Let's see how you manage it, because you right now, the burden of proof is on JJ Piccolo to be not Dayton Moore. And when you say things like that that bring you back, bring every Royals fan snapping back to that feeling of, our general manager might be delusional.
That's Dayton Piccolo right now.
It sounds like an echo.
It's JJ Moore.
JJ. I like JJ Moore. I think. I like JJ Moore more. Yeah.
Okay.
It is so disorienting because the entire argument of hope, and boy, I really do wonder what John Sherman's thinking right now, because the entire argument of hope around this tweaked front office, you take the head man out and you say, all right, we're gonna still. Some people are getting promotions, and a lot of people are at least sticking around. We believe this is going to give us different results because the process will be different, because JJ Piccolo is not Dayton Moore. And I've been operating under that benefit of the doubt this entire time. But man, this is right now literally the time to prove it. And he hasn't proven that yet.
This is a team that should be looking for young flyers, lottery tickets, 18, 19-year-old players. That you trade Nicky Lopez, okay, let's go to your Dominican League team. Let's take one of those players off the Dominican League team. Not Taylor Hearn, who they could have acquired last week for cash from the Rangers. If this was somebody they really wanted, you could have got him yourself for cash last week. Now they're trading Nicky Lopez for a bullpen arm because they're probably trading some more bullpen arms. Okay, sure. That's fine, whatever. But this season is a lost season. It's an evaluation year, but you're not evaluating Taylor Hearn.
No, that's right.
You're not evaluating those guys. You can be evaluating Jackson Kowar and Austin Cox and Jonathan Heasley and Carlos Hernandez and Taylor Clark, et cetera, et cetera. You can be evaluating some other players at AAA that might be ready to come up and pitch in the bullpen. You could be evaluating those guys while trading a Nicky Lopez for a lottery ticket lower in the minor leagues that maybe in a couple, 3 years comes up, and maybe you're ready to compete and you trade that piece for something that can help the big league club. And now you go, you know what? You traded Nicky Lopez 3 years ago. You got this guy back. You develop this guy. And now you get this starting pitcher to help you along the way to go and win this division. Boy, that's being transactional. Mm-hmm. Small little wins here or there. But you're pigeonholing yourself. It sounds like Allard Baird when it was, we're trading Beltran for a catcher and a third baseman and a pitcher. We have to have those. We're going to trade Beltran, and we're going to get a third baseman, a catcher, and a pitcher out of it. We're not going to get the best possible players we can get. We're going to specifically get a catcher, Jean-Bo. We're going to get a third baseman, Mark Tien, because he was mentioned in Moneyball's book. And we're going to get Mike Wood. We're going to throw a dart there for Carlos Beltran. Not the best possible players you can get. And when you are painting yourself in a corner of we want major league ready or near major league ready, you severely limit yourself in what you can do and building your farm system out so that 2 or 3 years from now, when let's be realistic, when this team might be ready to compete, that you have some of these guys that you've taken a flyer on. I'm starting to think that, most of us looked at the Aroldis Chapman deal and said, you know what, that 18-year-old kid in the Dominican, that's the prize. I think the Royals were like, it's a throw-in. We got Cole Reagans. We got this Cole Reagans guy, and boy, we got what we needed with a near major league talent that's here that we can figure out. They threw this guy in a minute. Oh, we'll see what happens in 5, 6 years, whenever that guy is going to be around. But the fans view that guy as the player in the deal for Aroldis Chapman.
And that's what we were all waiting for yesterday too, right? It was like, okay, here's your older, probably washed, but maybe, hey, look, he's got a little control. So if the Royals can get a spark out of him and maybe he pitches well next year, they trade him at the deadline. Okay, fine. So I see some vision here. But what's the point here? Who's going to be playing for the Fireflies for a little while that we're going to get to see some highlights of? Who gets to be a Quad City River Bandit and give us some hope? Oh, no one. It's just Nicky Lopez gone. It's a really hard trade to swallow because, again, and man, so frequently in talent evaluation, and sometimes when the Chiefs do it, it's a good thing. When the Royals do it, it's depressing. But it's like, oh man, we've had our eye on this guy for years, and we've just been we've been always wanting to bring Taylor Hearn into this organization. We know that's not true because they could have done it a week ago for cash.
He was DFA'd. He was available.
He was DFA'd a week ago.
What they should have done was traded Nicky Lopez to the Braves for a player to be named later. Then when it's in football season, name the player being Taylor Hearn, and people are like, they got Taylor Hearn for him? Anyway, so let's talk about this Lions game that's coming up. That would have been a better move than Taylor Hearn. But you know what? They're going to trade some bullpen pieces. We think only if they can get Major League ready guys back. Let's trade bullpen guys for other Major League ready bullpen guys. Makes zero sense. You're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, and that didn't work out well because it didn't matter where the deck chairs were, and it doesn't matter if you've got Major League ready talent. You're not going to get talent that's good enough to make a difference with Nicky Lopez or Barlow or Hernandez or anybody else. It's not going to happen. The only way you can get somebody that might be a difference maker is getting younger and younger in the minors and developing him yourself. That's not what they're doing. That's incredibly discouraging. We'll see what happens tomorrow, 5 o'clock, when the trade deadline expires, where this Royals team is. Maybe this is the first piece to a bigger puzzle, and JJ has just been leading people to think it's going to be Major League ready guys. I doubt it. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Last time I got to tell you about Ruback Fine Jewelry, I was telling you about the incredible ring that they had put together for fiancée Renee. Well, a few things have happened since then, and that's what my ring sounds like when it hits a microphone. And now Renee is wife Renee. My ring is from Ruback Fine Jewelry. Her ring is from Ruback Fine Jewelry. And we could not possibly be happier with how that entire process went of creating a beautiful custom piece. And I'll tell you more about that as the weeks go on. But if you ever, see me in public and just want a little evidence as to what Ruback can do, I keep it on my finger now. But the big news is Ruback is moving locations after 32 years. They're moving to downtown Overland Park in October, and because of the move, Ruback is having their biggest sale ever. Everything from the current location has got to go. Prices are going to be amazing, and I've seen the stuff at that location many times now, and you're going to want to go check it out. This includes lab-grown diamonds, natural diamonds, colored stones, necklaces, rings, and more. You can plan ahead here, folks, and go to Ruback Fine Jewelry for a show-stopping upcoming birthday, anniversary, or holiday gift right now. This is a huge deal they have going on, and your chance to be an absolute hero planning for whatever event you have coming up. Plus, anyone wanting to get engaged? That's what I did. I went to Ruback. You can go to Ruback, get your loose diamond during the sale, and then go to Ruback's new location to have the custom ring made in the fall. This is a great deal, and the sale is going to be unreal. That's August 21st through September 16th. That's at Ruback Fine Jewelry, August 21st through September 16th. It'll take place at their current location, 5100 West 95th Street, inside the U.S. Bank Building. You can view the sale on your own by appointment from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., or come in during the open hours from 1 to 5 p.m. You can check out all of their information, everything else they got online at ruback.co. That's Ruback Fine Jewelry. You can visit them online, make your appointment, and get out there for their huge sale at ruback.co.
You know there's a reason that cannabis connoisseurs drive past a dozen or more dispensaries to shop at Relief Resources Dispensary in Grandview. Actually, there are lots of reasons, but two of them are Kansas City's only two ganjiers. Ganjiers are to cannabis what sommeliers are to wine. They're the master chocolatiers of marijuana. Certified experts who not only...
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll head up to St. Joe when the Chiefs get done with practice. The horn blew, so we think sometime soon. Steve Spagnuolo, Rashid Rice, Drew Tranquil, and Felix and Udike Uzama will be at the podium today for the Chiefs, and so we will check out and see what all they have to say and hear what all they have to say about camp, how it's going so far. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810 is the text line. One of the conversations that is going on recently because of what we're seeing out at training camp that a year ago we didn't see out at training camp because the man had surgery on his foot before training camp started, and while he was an off-season darling and the Chiefs PR and the social media team didn't do many favors to Justin Ross in limiting that excitement around him and some of those highlights and things like that. We didn't see him in training camp last year. We're seeing him in training camp right now, OTAs, things like that, whatever. But we're seeing him in training camp. Fans are out there, media's out there the whole time, and, running with the ones, doing some different things here or there. And there's excitement around what Justin Ross can do and be for this team. It's going on a year now, and we haven't seen him play. Let's be honest, it's been going on 4 years now, since 2019 when he had the amazing freshman year. We are talking about a player that, in that time, has been up and down and injured and missed all of last year in the NFL, taking a pseudo redshirt year. Micah Parsons tweets out after there's a video of Justin Ross. Micah Parsons tweets out, "People don't realize he was a first-round pick before the neck injury. This does not surprise me at all. He been a dog." DAWG, which is DAWG tougher than DOGG?
Huh.
Because, DOGG has been around a long time.
Yeah, I think that's just definitively Snoop, though,
yeah,
really.
So that's a one. If you say he been a dog,
Nate Dogg,
DOGG,
Double G?
he might be.
He might be.
What? Yeah.
He sure is.
It's a clear black night, a clear white moon. So he been a dog is what Micah Parsons saying about Justin Ross. And that's certainly exciting. Rashee Rice has been making some highlight reel catches. Here's Ted Cruz.
Isaiah Moore and Kadarius and Tershawn is not here for personal reasons, not because he's sick or hurt more, so he's fine. All right.
All right, there's Ted Cruz. As to the players that did not practice, we'll hear from Steve Spagnuolo, apparently pretty quick. But there's a video of Rashee Rice. Sam Munson, who we've had on from Pro Football Focus, says Rashee Rice already looks like a better wide receiver than his college tape. KC has such an exciting group of wide receivers, largely unproven, but crazy talented with a magician throwing the football. We'll talk about that. Spags.
We thought we were going to be inside there for a little bit, but nothing to add, just I'll open it up. It's ready.
Steve, with Drew, his versatility that he can use there in a linebacker, how's that how are you maneuvering that piece of the puzzle around?
Yeah, it's nice to have guys like that can do more than one thing. He's played all three base linebacker positions, and then he's been in, the sub package when he's been in with Nick, plus he's been in there in the mic with one of the other linebackers. That helps us a lot, and he's a guy, listen, it's all new to him as far as the verbiage and the system, so it tells you that he's pretty intelligent if he's playing that many spots this early.
How about Felix's progress?
Yeah, I think Felix is climbing. I really do. I mean, we all know he didn't get a lot of, didn't do anything in the offseason here, and that set him back. I thought he was a little rusty and struggled early. But Joe and I both, as you watch one-on-ones or you watch the team periods, he's flashing now, which is a good thing. There's still a curve there, right? The learning curve. I think he's doing pretty good right now. Yeah.
Coach, you guys unfortunately lost Nazi.
Yeah.
Beyond the four guys from last year, Nick Jones, the draft pick, who's pushing to maybe break into that group?
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are playing really. Nick's one you brought up. Echo, I thought, had a really good day the other day. And Boodle always gives us everything he's got. Somebody's going to have to surface, that's for sure. We do have guys with some experience now. That would have been a little different a year ago, right? If you started having injuries there, we were all young. I'm really sad to see that happen to NJ. He was really climbing. If you guys notice, he was taking reps with the first group because he had earned it. And he's got a really good corner skill set. I mean, he played safety in college, but so hopefully, we'll pray he gets healthy real quick and gets back. Yeah.
Steve, how much of you mentioning Drew being at all three linebacker spots? This is a little bit of experimentation, but a little bit of, trying to simulate a game as if he would need to go from maybe one spot to the next.
That's a great point. I mean, look, we know he's a guy that's played in the league, right? He's been a starter. And so we try to find spots to get him out there right away. We've got pretty good players there in base now. But we got some packages and we can do some things with them. We'll kind of see how that all evolves. But it's nice to have. It's really nice to have.
You mentioned Felix in his learning curve.
for defensive end, a rookie coming into the system, what are maybe some of the biggest challenges he faces in training camp?
Yeah, you know who could answer that better than anybody?
Felix.
George. Because he went through it a year ago, right? But Felix as well. At any position on defense, in my opinion, there's going to be a learning curve, right? Everything's new. You know, the speed of the game, you know, who they're going to go against, learning the guys they're going to line up against. You got to get through defeating your own offensive line and offensive team first. You got to learn a playbook. And I think where he got behind was one thing about off-season. You know, as defensive coaches, we complain you can't do real football, right? But the one thing about the off-season is you can get a lot of the mental part, get a base, and he didn't have that initially. He's playing catch-up right now.
Last year you had Frank that kind of took George under his wing. Who's doing that for Felix this year?
Well, maybe I see George talking to Felix. I see Charles. And I guarantee you Mike Damon is, because that's the kind of guy Mike is. Now he's dealing with his injury right now, but I think all those guys have kind of brought him under his wing.
Hey, Steve, you're really impressive Daniel-wise, just what you see from him.
Yeah, quick inside movement, which Joe has stuck out to Joe and I. And we got a ways to go. There's pretty good competition inside there with all those big guys, so we'll see how it all serves.
Have you seen improvement from Herring? It seems like he's
Malik?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and today he played. You know, he's playing a number of positions. We're talking about Drew and being in different spots. If you look out there, Malik's in a lot of different spots too, in different packages. And you know, here's a guy that's been here for a number of years, so he's heard it. So from the mental part, he's much further ahead than some of the other guys.
Steve, when it comes to the secondary, facing those receivers, just in your eyes, seeing it from the other vantage point, you see the receivers kind of be a little more groomed, those new guys.
Our guys here? Yeah. There's guys flashing out there, and I'm trying to learn our guys' names, so sometimes I can't get all the rest. But I tell you, Sky, you know, he just pops out now, but we expected that, right? And MVS, but the whole bunch of those guys. They're a challenge for us because I mean, you guys know this, but our quarterback makes all those receivers better. So it's great. It's good work for us.
You mentioned red zone as an area you wanted to improve. You're working on a lot this week.
Yeah.
Andy said yesterday that he felt like the zones were shrinking, especially for you. Do you feel that way? Do you see the progress?
Yeah, there's tighter coverage. You know, we're a zone match team. I think our guys are doing a better job of that. That's a credit to the guys in the middle that are leading it, like Nick and Brian Cook. You know, they're kind of in the middle of the whole thing. And then our corners playing pretty tight. But I think, you know, rep after rep after rep. We get a lot of passes thrown at us here, so we better get good at it because we certainly get plenty of work.
Has anyone in particular benefited from getting the reps since Chris isn't here on the interior defensive line?
Really all of those guys. Joe's kind of kept them on a rotation, not one in particular. I mean, Matt was with us a year ago, and it's good to have him back, Matt Dickinson, and I think he'll get more reps as we go here. But we need to find out, you know, what we have in there, and there's some unknowns inside.
Just going up against this offense, is it a double-edged sword in the red zone? I mean, as good as they are, but you're going up against the best, but then at the same time, you just got to get demoralized sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think our guys get over that part. But what gets tough sometimes is we defend a lot of passes in practice, and then if we go out there the first couple of games and people are going the other way, that's what's more of a challenge for us. But we get as much of that as we can when we do these 10-10-10s, because in those 30 plays, we're selecting what we need to see. That's why you saw some more red zone and some more run plays today.
Last two, Steve and Matt.
Steve, when it's hot outside, tempers flare a little bit.
Yeah.
We saw a couple of your defenders going up against Kelsey after the play. What's your message to those?
It's all good. I mean, the one thing about, I'm talking about the whole team now. Yeah. The one thing about all our guys, I think, in my opinion, they all respect each other. And so when it gets heated for a moment, you know, that's just the competitive juices and some pride coming out. But I always see them kind of take care of it afterwards, and that's the best thing.
Coach, especially the 3 straight padded practices, can you speak to the value of these 10-10-10 practices for your guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Reed has a really good pulse on when to pull off, when to push, when to make it heavy. You know, we went those, I guess it's been 3 in a row with the pads. And I think doing this here gives us a chance to do a little bit more of the mental, get the bodies back, you got tomorrow off, and then we can, I'm sure in Coach Reed's mind, we get after it a little bit next time we come back. Everybody good? Thanks. Yeah.
All right, there's Steve Spagnuolo. We'll hear from Drew Tranquill, Rashee Rice, and FAU coming up here in just a little bit. Whoever is at the podium next will go out there and hear from them. But Steve Spagnuolo, some things that we'll react to there. Here is Drew Tranquill.
Defensive system, Steve Spagnuolo said you're playing all three linebacker positions. How are you adjusting so far? You just try to get accustomed to this scheme and get yourself in the right places.
Well, man, it's an honor to be here and playing for Coach Spags and the defending champs. And we just have so many great guys in that room that I'm trying to learn from each and every day. It's certainly different than the defense I played in LA, but football's football, and you pick up on things as you go throughout your career. And certainly there's things during my time at Notre Dame and throughout my time in the league that I picked up on that have kind of helped me, translate and learn this defense. But it's a process nonetheless.
What have you picked up from the Chiefs that you are applying that you maybe haven't picked up anywhere else that you played?
Man, I think there's just certain techniques, certain uses of the hands. For instance, Coach Daly during spring camp switched the positioning of my hand in striking. And so it's just small things you'll pick up from coaches, from players throughout your career. And certainly there's a lot of great guys specifically within our room that I'm certainly learning from every day.
Drew, it looked like the day that Nick was out, I think he was sick, you got the green dot.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that particular workout went?
Yeah, I thought it went really well. I thought guys were lined up. We were playing fast. Certainly there's always corrections to make, but it felt smooth, felt comfortable, felt a lot better than the spring when I was learning it for the first time.
Drew, how many teams were a possibility for you as a free agent? And just what about SPAC system sort of was, I guess, intriguing for you?
Yeah, there was, at any given time, there was probably 10 or 11 teams involved, and as dominoes fell, that list shrunk, but there was about 5-6 teams that last day I was kind of choosing between, and I think just talking to Coach Spags, talking to Brett Veach, talking to Andy Reid, I just felt really valued here. Felt like they were going to use a lot of my strengths, maximize me as a player here, and that excited me and ultimately led to my decision to come here.
Is there added juice when you go from one division team to another?
Certainly, yeah. You can't wait. You can't wait to play them for sure.
After going through those games, and there were a lot of exciting games that came down to the wire, what's it like to come here and be with this team as opposed to going up against them?
Yeah, it's great. It seems like we couldn't beat them in the fourth quarter or overtime over the past 2-3 years. Division games are always exciting. They're always fun. They're going to continue to be, and so I'm excited to be part of Chiefs Kingdom and go after another ring this year.
How's the neck feel? Whatever that.
Oh yeah, this has nothing to do with that. No, it's just a football play the other day, and got jammed up a little bit, but it's doing well. Thanks for asking.
Drew, you said that Steve, Brett, and Andy sort of felt value. Is there something that you feel like you've put on tape that has not gotten the respect that you might want to be able to show in this system?
I mean, I think just my versatility as a linebacker, my ability to cover, my ability to rush, my ability to play the run, and my instincts. That's one thing you can't teach physically, is instincts. And out of any position on the defense, maybe you have to have the most of, is linebacker when it comes to instincts. And so I think all of those things, along with some intangibles, some leadership, I think they saw those, they affirmed those in me throughout the process, and I certainly agreed with them, and felt like this was the best place for me.
Drew, I'm sure you had an impression of the Chiefs in their locker room from having played there for 4 years, but how is that matched up with what you're seeing now that you've actually gotten here to camp?
It's just hyper competitive around here. Like, winning is absolutely everything. It's kind of egos aside. It's like winning is the ultimate goal. The picture of that Super Bowl ring is on the start of every single slide of every presentation. Whether it's Coach Spags saying, hey, let's change this up schematically just to try to fool Patrick to win this day at practice. Like, winning is everything to them, and you certainly see that with the amount of close games they win on a year in and year out basis.
Any impressions of Andy's camp so far?
It's hard, man. It's hard. It's a lot tougher than the previous 4 camps I've been a part of, for sure.
What makes you say that?
I mean, he just maximizes every minute of on-field time. I think per the collective bargaining agreement, we get like 4 hours, and we're going to be on the field for exactly 4 hours. You're going to be out here for 2.5 hours. You're going to be in there for an hour and a half. And so he grinds you. He gets the most out of you. And, that ultimately goes to winning, I think.
How sore do you feel after 3 straight days of pads?
Man, sometimes you just feel like a turtle walking off the field, man. Just slow and steady, but you take it day by day and try to make the most of your opportunity.
You said they have the Super Bowl ring in every projection. I mean, when you see that, what's that mean for all those guys to be like, okay, this is the standard and we got to be pretty unique to something you've seen.
I mean, as a competitor, like your ideal dream is to be a world champion, and so a lot of these guys in this locker room have done that. I'm excited to join up with them, learn from them, and be a part of this championship culture. And it's, as Coach Reed says, anybody can do it one time, but going back to back sets you apart, and that's what we're after. Got to keep the chip on our shoulder this year because everybody's obviously going to be out to get us.
Last two up front here. And then
I know you said how difficult it was, but as a player, is that something you appreciate, that you're maximizing your time out here, and you know you're getting the work done necessary so you guys can hit the ground running when the season starts?
I think there's something like in us as human beings, like when we do hard things and put that like in our reservoir, like we're able to draw from that later. And I think that's what Coach Reed's all about, is building this foundation in camp, so that when we're in Jacksonville week 2 and it's 90 degrees, 80% humidity, we're able to kind of draw from that well of difficult circumstances throughout training camp and apply it to those present situations.
Last one. Drew, you kind of have a unique perspective on this. When you go up against Travis Kelce as a defender, guarding everything, trying to get him down, what's it like? I mean, how different is it versus other guys?
He's such a unique, fascinating, incredible player. He's so unchoreographed in a lot of his movements. He'll stem you in, and you're thinking he's definitely going over, and then he's going back out. And so he's just a rare combination of speed, size, and strength. And he's got a lot of finesse to his game that make him really difficult to guard.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, everybody.
All right, there's Drew Tranquill, and boy, there's a number of things I want to react to from Drew Tranquill. We'll hear from Rashee Rice and Felix Anudike-Uzomah before they are done with their press conferences, talking about Spags, the defense, how he will be utilized, why he chose the Chiefs. There were 5 or 6 teams there the final day when he was deciding who to sign with. He chose the Chiefs. Everything about winning, the ring, all of that stuff. Here's Felix.
It's a day-to-day process. At the same time, I'm learning every day. I'm trying to get better every day as I go. So at the end of the day, it's a day-to-day process. I'm just learning the playbook and technique-wise. So yeah.
How much did not being able to participate physically in the OTAs affect you coming into training camp?
Affected me quite a bit. I'm not gonna lie, because a lot of the rookies obviously had to learn technique-wise, going to field full speed and stuff like that, and I had to jump back because of my injury and stuff like that. But now I'm here. Now I'm in training camp, so it's just training camp's a great time to be. Time to get your footwork down, get everything down, so to be ready for the preseason.
Steve Spagnuolo just said you're climbing, and he said you're flashing now. Do you agree with that assessment that you're climbing flashing?
I agree that I'm learning every day. I'm learning exactly what the coaches have for me in store, just learning technique-wise. So, and I thank him for saying that. At the end of the day, that I'm still learning. I'm still not there yet, and I got some learning to do. So yeah.
How close is this to what you expected will be your first training camp?
How close? Obviously, I had to step back from OTAs, so that it's kind of a jump back, but I'm slowly getting to the hang of it.
Felix, you come in as a first-round draft pick. Are there expectations you feel you have to live up to carrying that with you?
I'm just blocking that out. At the end of the day, I'm just drafted here to play, so I'm drafted here to learn, play, and learn the defense.
Are you going to same sack dance?
I will, yeah.
Anything else? Last one.
It's a bit of both. Obviously, coming from college, you're not met with the same competition as people in the NFL, because those are people that are the best of the best, and mental-wise too. There's a lot of more things that I've learned from jumping from Kansas State to here, like technique-wise, and plus I was in a 3-4, and now we're in a 4-down defense, so there's a lot of more stuff, and I'm dropping back, so it's a lot of stuff that I got to learn. So yeah.
In the back, what's that?
I've seen Deuce has been making some noise down in Dallas. Are you getting in contact with him?
Yeah, we talk almost every day. He just tells me his experience with him with the Cowboys. I tell him my experience I have here. So yeah, we keep contact a lot.
All right, thanks guys.
All right, there's Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and he said quite a bit not being a part of OTAs has affected him, but still learning every day, and he will have the gorilla sack dance in the NFL. Here's Rashee Rice.
The rookies, now you're with the vets. How's it going for you? How do you feel you're adjusting?
It's going pretty good. I think OTAs have helped me be able to adjust, just because we kind of had the same mentality of OTAs that we have now.
dealing with camp, dealing with the same with pads on, how different was that for you and going through this process?
Not too much different. I love football and can't play football without pads, so it's just another part of the game.
How much does it add to it to be able to practice in front of fans?
It's pretty cool, honestly. I know Arrowhead, they have a huge fan base, so just to get a little glimpse of it right now, kind of give me a little head start to prepare for the games.
Where do you feel like you still need to fine-tune some?
Honestly, just certain snap counts and being able to, adjust as far as, when the defense moving, I need to be able to adjust my certain routes.
There are certain things that every quarterback is going to prefer. Like, what have you learned in the week so far about maybe where Pat wants you to be or do in certain places?
He expects his receivers to be in a specific spot at a specific time, and he's going to bomb the ball, so don't look back and run, look up and run.
Along those lines, what is he like as a teacher as far as you're teaching you what you need to know?
He's a great coach, great brother off the field, and he's just going to let you know exactly what he's thinking so that you can basically be in his head on and off the field.
As far as getting into his head?
Can you say that again?
Do you feel like you're getting there as far as getting into his head?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm becoming real confident. I think you can see that.
Rasheed, Matt Nagy talked about the timing of Patrick. How important is that? How have you bumped that adjustment from college to now having Patrick?
I mean, like I said, just learning how to run out of certain routes and running full speed, running full speed the whole play.
Do you feel pressure to do what Pat wants and to learn from him, learn the offense so that you can make an impact? I mean, is there internal pressure you put on yourself because of that?
Honestly, I put pressure on myself every day just to come outside, to come to practice and get better. But it's not necessarily pressure from Pat or Travis or anything like that. They're kind of real welcoming, and they understand that I'm new to the system, so they're just going to help me, catch up to their speed so I can be a vet as soon as I can.
Rasheed, what's been your favorite day of camp and why? What's been your worst day of camp and why?
I don't necessarily think there's been a worst day of camp. Every day is hard work. I mean, that's kind of comes with it. And then, my best day, favorite day, it's kind of when I have any kind of impact on the field on offense.
I guess when you say that, when did you sort of feel like that was starting to come on in camp?
When I caught my first touchdown from Pat, I was kind of like, yeah, I could do this.
Have you thrown up at all since day one?
Nah.
Looking back at your pre-draft, when you got together with Patrick, how much of that stuff already applied out of your stuff?
A lot of it. Like I say, regardless, whenever Pat is throwing the ball, he's going to be coaching at the same time. So it just he translates that to the practice field as well.
It's the same way he was doing it back then. Does he pretty similar personality back then as he is now?
Yeah, if I got a question and if I'm not running the route exactly how he wants it, he's going to let me know how he wants the route run, and then I'm going to keep doing it until we got repetition and constant on that route.
Okay, thanks, Rasheed.
Thank you.
All right, there is Rasheed Rice at the podium wrapping up the press conference coverage there in St. Joe for this July 31st final practice, final day of July into August. We will continue rolling along our training camp coverage presented by Barstool Sportsbook, Bud Light, Greengrass Cattle Company, and Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park. We'll take a timeout. We will come back, and we will talk about what we heard from Steve Spagnuolo, Drew Tranquill, Felix and Udike Uzama, and Rasheed Rice. He has not thrown up since the first day of camp. Take that.
Neither have I. How about us, Rasheed Rice?
You threw up that same day.
No comment.
Okay.
But I definitely haven't thrown up since that day.
Neither have I.
Look at us. Drake, you barf recently?
Nope.
There we go. 3 for 3.
I think we must all...
What did he say?
No, wait a minute. I think we must all be in equally good shape as Rasheed Rice.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, is the same conditioning and stamina that Rasheed Rice has, the three of us also have had maybe at one point in our life, if we dreamed about it.
Yeah, no, we didn't. Some of us never did.
Nope. There was zero chance any of us.
I was a fullback.
I played left out.
Attention Chiefs fans, get ready to witness the reigning champions in action in KC this season. The Kansas City Chiefs home opener against the...
All right, so the Chiefs wrapping up practice early today because of some of the weather, et cetera, things like that. So we heard from Steve Spagnuolo, Drew Tranquill, Felix and Udike Uzama, and Rashee Rice. There was also video of Tommy Townsend and hurting his foot.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
He punts it and lands, and then he immediately reaches down for his foot. So you think maybe that's the foot that he landed on that he hurt, but he goes and starts holding his right foot. It looks like maybe he stepped on somebody that was coming in to do like a shadow. No, maybe not. I don't know.
Okay.
So, I don't know. It's we're our grainy footage Zapruder film analyzing. Kicks it, lands, then steps, and then immediately reaches down and goes for his right foot. So
okay,
I don't know.
Interesting.
He's in the tent. That's all we know for Tommy Townsend. And
well, I don't think Ted mentioned him at all in the full injury report. It was just the guys who weren't out there today. So.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that, and then there's also video of Sky Moore taking a snap as the quarterback in the Wildcat. There's
the Skyldcat.
Yo, I like it. Boom, I like it. We want more of that. There's video of Patrick Mahomes throwing a touchdown, deep touchdown to Justin Ross. So, there's that. Patrick Mahomes hitting Richie James down the field for a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes hitting Sky Moore down the field for a touchdown. So just your fun day of camp and things like that. So 913-912-4810 is the text line, 913-912-4810. We started with some Royals stuff in the first part of the show. That's what a lot of the texts come in. We're talking about. We'll get into that. Maybe get back into that here in just a little bit. Josh, I typically start with my observations and things like that of what I heard, but sometimes you get annoyed that I'll mention something.
You take all my good ones?
Or two. So today I decided, I wrote down, I said, let Josh go first.
Whoa!
See if he steals anything of mine, and I can get mad at him. So we will start with you and some of the takeaways from the press conference and what you heard.
Just give me Spags on Drew Tranquill then, and then I'll open it back up, because that for me was the most fun stuff. And we could see that coming from when Spags talked about Drew Tranquill the first time, and we talked about how we are going to see a ton of Drew Tranquill, where Spags said last week, it's like he's been here for 3 years. The highest compliment Steve Spagnuolo can give to a linebacker.
Yeah.
He has now, as Spags said today, played all 3 spots in the base defense, plus the sub packages, and he made the specific point, sub packages with Nick Bolton, and sub packages, air quotes here for me, paraphrasing, as Nick Bolton with someone else next to him. And I also thought it was interesting and maybe telling, and maybe a slip of the tongue, maybe not, when Spags says, we've got 3 pretty good linebackers. I didn't say linebackers. We got 3 pretty good ones in base now.
Mm-hmm.
That means Leo Chanel's a starting linebacker in that group.
I heard that too. When he said that, I'm like, okay, so you're talking about Gay, Bolton, and also Chanel.
And I would ultimately bet on, by the time week 1 gets here, that Leo Chanel is a really nice guy to have as your 4th linebacker. Like, I think Drew Tranquill, I would bet cash money on him being top 3 in linebacker snaps for the Chiefs this year. I would really think about him being 2nd in linebacker snaps this year, honestly.
So the Drew Tranquill stuff stood out, and the linebacker thing, I noted that as well. Like, okay, so he's talking about base defense with Chanel, Bolton, and Gay. One of the things stood out, and he was asked about Andy Reid's comments about red zone and, the defense that, is tougher to go up against this training camp than a year ago, and the tighter coverage that's there in red zone drills and things like that. And he was asked about that, Steve Spagnuolo was, and just said, guys are doing better, this go around, talking about the different zone that they play. And then he said, guys in the middle that are making sure everybody's in the right spot and doing a great job. Nick, Brian Cook, those guys. That's who he mentioned. He didn't mention Justin Reed or anything. He said Nick and Brian Cook. So Bolton and Brian Cook. That stood out to me, that's the safety he talked about, of getting guys in the right spot in the middle there, which is why the red zone defense has been as good as it is, that Andy Reid noted it and commented on the tougher go that it is this year for the Chiefs offense to score in the red zone against the secondary of the Chiefs defense this year, as opposed to last year when everything was vanilla and they were just sort of learning the technique and where to line up. And Rashad Fenton was out there and didn't end the season with them at that time. So So yeah, that was interesting that those are the two guys he mentioned was Nick Bolton and Brian Cook getting everybody in the right spot.
And then even having to talk about, Najee Johnson, who, man, you could hear when he was first talking about him, you could tell Spags is bummed that he's not out there. And then also that there was a real path to some defensive playing time, in addition, like you talked about earlier, the special teams. But to look at the rest of that group right now and to remember where we were at and where the Chiefs were at this time a year ago when, like you said, the vanilla defense and like Spags saying, we got some guys we could put back there that have a little experience. It's like he almost had to like pinch himself. Be like, last year when I was talking to you, we never could have said anything like that. And then for the young guys to also be a part of that leadership group, mentioning Brian Cook, it makes me smile because we just can never really tell if Spags is coaching and doing a thing or if he's just talking. Because it always sounds like he's just talking, and that makes him a great presser, and I think it probably makes him an even better coach. But like to highlight Brian Cook as a leader and a vocal leader on this defense, I think it comes naturally to Brian Cook from what we heard about him in college and even throughout growing in his rookie season. But Spags just throws it out there. I don't know. Is he trying to like put a spotlight so Brian Cook knows he's a leader, or is he just talking? I don't know if it matters.
I think he was just talking and just going through like what's happening out there on the field. And to me, like not even like vocal a leader, he's mentioning as one of the reasons why they've been tighter and better in red zone coverage that made Andy Reid comments about it of, Nick Bolton and Brian Cook, everybody's in the right spot. Those guys are doing those things. I mean, that's great. If that's what Steve Spagnuolo was seeing is that Brian Cook is getting guys in the right spot. He's those guys in the middle, Nick Bolton and Brian Cook. That certainly stood out. And I don't know if this is anywhere near what last year was during training camp when people were talking about, Joshua Williams, and then Steve Spagnuolo was like, let's not forget about Jalen Watson. This guy's playing really well. I don't know that it's to this level because that was specific when it was unprompted. He brought that up. But in talking about Najee Johnson, he mentioned Echo Boydo by name. And it's like, well, you got some guys. Echo has played really well and stepped into that role. So that was interesting. Local guy, Kansas State, that, he mentions him specifically by name of guys so that stood out to me with Steve Spagnuolo as well. And again, I don't know that rises to the level of you and I, when the season started, said, we look back and remember he specifically said, hey, you guys need to watch a little bit more about Jalen Watson and not just talk about Joshua Williams.
I think this year it might also be Shamari Connor just because he has been a fourth-round pick, if that's the sweet spot for Chiefs cornerbacks. But I think there was just so many interesting rookies around him that he slipped through the cracks, even behind a guy like B.J. Thompson or Keandre Coburn, who have some real paths of playing time. Also, an update on the Tommy Townsend saga here as Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. You can hear him Fridays on the Zone.
Oh, cool.
He tweets out, Tommy Townsend briefly went over to the medical tent during practice, but exited quickly and returned to the field. He wasn't listed in the team's post-practice injury rundown, like we had mentioned. But I'd not seen that he did return to the field, so keep an eye on it, but so far so good on Tommy.
My fear initially was when he landed on his left foot that he immediately reached down for that. That wasn't the case. He was reaching down for the foot that he punted with. Who knows? But very briefly in the tent, went back out there, returned to practice, and Ted Cruz did not even mention Tommy Townsend there being a part of the
Steven tweeted out that he did go up the hill in a cart, so maybe he took a little trip up and then returned after that. We'll have to splice all this together.
Yeah, so I'm putting it together. He went to the tent, went up the hill, then returned to practice. Ted Cruz didn't mention him.
That seems like a good path to me.
That's what I'm going to speculate on the air, and people can just run with that.
They've heard us work on it.
Go ahead and report that.
We're showing our work.
I'd write it down. I would go ahead and prick the finger, write it in blood, that's exactly what happened.
If you need to borrow a finger pricker, I do have one.
Yep, there you go. Josh can let you borrow his prick. Drew Trank will talk today, and I think I'm going to enjoy listening to Drew Tranquil talk. That's one of the fun things about hearing some of the new guys on this Chiefs team as to what they sound like and how willing they are to be there at the podium. And when Matt Derrick asked about the little doohickey that he had on his neck there, the little horseshoe on his neck that he was wearing, and he said, well, it's just got jammed up a little bit, his neck, but thank you for asking.
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for asking.
Hey, man, you're welcome. It's my job.
That's
that was so funny.
Very nice of him. And he was... He elaborated on a number of different things, and I thought it was interesting when he talked about some of the benefits of Andy Reid's camp is that, you can put some of this in the reservoir, and then as it gets late in the season, you can dip back into that water that's there, the reserves, and you can use that in a game. And he said, week number 2, we're going to be in Jacksonville. If it's 90 degrees, we can reach back into the reservoir of what we've built here in camp and all of the extra stuff when you're tired and building those things that we can go and dig down and grab that stuff. Thought that was interesting, as this is his first Reed camp, and saying that they maximize. If it's 4 hours on the field, it is 4 hours on the field, and you're getting everything, every minute you can. He grinds you, and he'll get the most out of you. And the expectations of success and what I wrote down, that I'm not sure, maybe I missed this, of Andy Reid saying this or somebody else saying this, but Drew Tranquill said, as Andy Reid said, anybody can do it one time, but going back-to-back is what sets you apart. Has anybody heard Andy Reid acknowledge, they want to go back-to-back because of what it would mean from the bigger picture of this team, this group, and winning one is cool, but back-to-back sets you apart in the history of the NFL and this team? But when Drew Tranquill says, as Andy Reid says, maybe not once, but as Andy Reid says, anybody can do it once, going back-to-back is what sets you apart. That was pretty interesting to hear somebody say that, because maybe I missed it. I haven't heard anybody say something like that where that's sort of been a mantra.
I think Mahomes has said some stuff kind of like that here and there, talking about, the dynasty doesn't really start unless we get another one and wanting to go back-to-back. But I certainly, I haven't seen or heard that from Andy Reid anywhere else, and we certainly haven't seen him say it the way that I bet he said it in whatever meeting Drew Tranquill is remembering, where you get a little bit of a fiery Andy Reid that says, all right, welcome to camp. We're here to do this thing. Some of you just won a Super Bowl. Some of you haven't had one in your career, but here's the deal. Back-to-back's what sets you apart. I think that as they had the whole kind of a little bit of a secret MO last year, because when the Super Bowl ring said Edge on them, I was like, is this for George Karlaftis and Mike Dana and Frank Clark? Is that what?
Are they going defensive end in the first round?
Right, are they sending a message?
Oh, wait, they had already had that.
They did that already, yeah.
That's right, the rings were after. Damn it.
But and maybe they're just going to keep doing it forever, because they've done it twice. But that might have been on some T-shirts as the year went on. I don't remember. There are a few of those. The Strength Group has their own T-shirt logo. Right. Did you see the Rams ones over the weekend?
The paragraphs?
Oh, fantastic. I can't quote them off the top of my head because there's too much text. But we've seen some of that. But on the official infographic on the ring, it was Andy Reid's motto for the 2022 season, Edge. And I was like, says who? Where did that come from?
When?
And I'm guessing that actually was something Andy Reid was saying a lot behind closed doors, and maybe this year's Super Bowl ring will say back-to-back, or this sets you apart. I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing that ring in about a year or so.
Tex says Cincinnati would disagree that anyone can win it once.
So would the Bills, and so would the Eagles.
Lions.
Yeah. I guess entire franchise. Entire franchises.
Yeah,
sure.
Bengals and Eagles would disagree that anybody can do it once.
Bengals and Lions, yeah.
Did I say Eagles?
That time you said Eagles, because I was thinking about teams the Chiefs have vanquished recently.
I was correcting you on the Eagles and saying Lions, and then I went Eagles. I'm so stupid. Bengals, Lions. Oh, my.
I wonder if Edge stands for something. Every dude gives effort or something.
Every day, get
even.
Better.
Every dude gives effort is better than I was going to come up
really
with,
good,
I think,
yeah.
Drake.
No, I think Drake, every dude gives effort. Let's go with that one. He's a dude. We got dudes out here. I've never heard Andy Reid call somebody a dude, though.
I bet he has.
He's a California guy. He's called somebody a dude before.
Guy's a dude.
All right, I gotta go look. I gotta go search through every transcript in my email for Andy Reid, dude. I'll be back. Put on my mining helmet.
Who is the college coach that calls guys dudes? He's a dude. And if he calls a guy a dude, it's like a big deal. He's a dude,
yeah,
right?
That's a compliment. I do that now in a way that is beyond irony, so I don't even catch it anymore.
Is this actually live at NFL Network right now of what's going on where NFL Network is? Oh, okay, that was maybe that was Saturday when they moved inside or whatever, or whenever they moved inside.
That would make sense. Yeah, there's a little past tense here
because they showed the clouds rolling in an NFL Network. Their set, they were sort of scrambling to get off the set to move out of the way because the rain was coming. So yeah, those things stood out for Steve Spagnuolo and Drew Tranquill and Andy Reid saying to the team, anyone can do it once. Going back to back is what sets you apart. So now we know that there is some acknowledgement. And obviously there's that of, hey, you want to win it, want to win it, want to win it, want to win it. But not only wanting to win it, but want to win it for the perspective in the history of the NFL as to stake your place in history, set yourself apart from other Super Bowl winners, go and do it again and do that. This is long-term legacy on the line this year. How many opportunities do you get to win it back-to-back? Chiefs have had 2 opportunities to win it back-to-back. They're 0 for 1. This is the second, I should say. They're 0 for 1 so far. This group.
Right.
This group, obviously. And, the first Super Bowl, obviously, they had a chance. But this group in setting yourself apart and going back-to-back, it just doesn't happen. And I think it becomes even tougher in today's NFL when, you've got these really, really good quarterbacks. You've got, I think, smarter ways of distributing your salary cap dollars in, smarter coaches, smarter schemes, next level schemes, things like that. I do think it becomes tougher and tougher for a team to go back-to-back, which is, to me, what would sort of stamp a dynasty if the Chiefs were to do that this year. If on February 11th, they are holding up the Lombardi Trophy in Vegas, this is no doubt an absolute dynasty and one of the greatest 5-year runs of any franchise in the history of the Super Bowl era.
I was going to say, I think it might be the best in the Super Bowl era. I mean, you're going to have a real tough Patriots gauntlet to run up against.
Yeah, the Patriots.
They won 3 and 4.
3 out of 5 years. They went to the Super Bowl. Did they go to the Super Bowl?
It was
other years.
So the Patriots beat the Rams, then it was Bucks Raiders.
No, I mean
then
like 2014 to like 2018.
Oh, you want the modern? Okay, because winning three out of 4, that was baby Brady, right?
And
that was totally
back-to-back.
different. But 3 out of 4, which requires back-to-back. Not to be a real stickler about it, I mean, you can't win 3 out of 4 without winning two in a row.
You're
but
right,
I mean,
you're right.
look, it's totally nitpicky. I'm just still scrolling to the next.
Yeah, so
section.
2014 to 18, the Patriots won 3 in a row. They lost a conference championship and they lost the Super Bowl. If the Chiefs, or 3 out of 5, they won 3 out of 5. They lost it, so they won the Super Bowl, lost the conference championship, won the Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. That's a 5-year
so
run.
Ridiculous.
That's
too.
a 5-year run.
Yeah, it's a hell of one. Also,
the Chiefs would be won the Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, lost the conference championship, won the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. That 5-year run would be better than the Patriots' 5-year run because they would have won back-to-back.
Yeah.
They both lost the Super Bowl and lost a conference championship game. But the Chiefs would add a back-to-back in there. Whereas the 5-year run for the Patriots was won the Super Bowl, did not make the playoffs, won the Super Bowl, lost in the second round of the playoffs. This 5-year run would be better than that one because you would also add the back-to-back in that 5-year run.
This is going to sound like we're counting our chickens, and I want to freak
right,
everybody out. But the wild thing, I mean, another thing about that's insane is that we were singing a chorus, like everyone watching football, not just me or whatever. Everyone was like, man, we're never going to see anything like this Patriots dynasty ever again. And literally back to back, you get the Patriots grab that last Super Bowl over the Rams, and then the Chiefs take it from there. I mean, what a horrendous 15-year stretch to be an AFC team that doesn't play in New England or Kansas City, which also is hilarious to say out loud if you've been paying attention to any aspect of NFL history. This game rules. I love football.
And again, not counting the chickens before they hatch and saying this is what it will be. It's hearing Andy Reid acknowledge to the players, anyone can do it once, winning back-to-back sets you apart. That's what's on the line for a lot of the players there in the historical, pantheon of the Super Bowl era. And if you want to talk dynasty, you'd have a real argument that if the Chiefs were to get it done this year with a better team, in my opinion, than they had last year, personnel-wise, if they get it done this year, it would be one of, if not the best 5-year runs in the Super Bowl era of any team in the history.
And those Patriots teams didn't have Justin Ross. So, checkmate.
All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back and maybe we talk some Justin Ross, some FAU, some Rashee Rice, some others as well. We will talk with Ryan Tracy coming up in the noon hour. Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs podcast, founder of the Athletic Matrix, RGR Football as well. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by...
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco and Drake heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs podcast and founder of the Athletic Matrix and RGR Football. And, I don't know, probably 10 other outlets that he probably has where you can access all of his takes, including at noon today. Coming up with him, we'll talk a lot of Chiefs with him. And one of the things that will be discussed throughout training camp is the wide receiver numbers crunch. Rashee Rice has been looking great at training camp. Justin Ross has been looking great at training camp. Richie James has been looking great at training camp. Sky Moore has been looking great at training camp. It's training camp. A lot of people look great. But can the Chiefs keep 7 wide receivers? MVS, Tony, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, there's 4. They are definitely on the squad. You've got Richie James, you've got Justin Watson, and then you've got Justin Ross, everybody's darling, most everybody's darling. Well, if we look at those 3 players, you've got Richie James, who is the punt returner right now for Dave Toub. That's your starting punt returner. No Kadarius Toney. We know Dave Toub has some say in guys that are on the special teams. Sky Moore has done it, and the last time Sky Moore had a punt return, it was a pretty big punt return.
Wait, great.
But when asked about returning punts, he did not sound enthusiastic about doing that earlier in training camp, I think last week, when he was asked about, returning punts, is that something you... That's what I heard. He was saying words, but that's what I heard him say. So Richie James, your punt returner. Justin Watson, maybe it was because Justin Watson was talking after Andy Reid. So therefore he was asked about, that typically happens, hey, Steve Spagnuolo, Drew Tranquil's talking. What do you think of Drew Tranquil? Hey, Andy Reid, Justin Watson is talking here in a little bit. What do you think of Justin Watson? And his point about Watson was always where he's supposed to be. He's going to give you 100% every time. You know what you're getting from Justin Watson.
You could have never said his name, and everyone on the planet would have known who you were talking about just from that description.
It's a gym rat. He
Real
is.
coach's kid.
You know what he is? He's a cerebral player.
He's going to give you 110%.
The thing is, though, he's one of the fastest players on the team.
Yeah,
so
no, Forrest Gump
doesn't really match up with the whole like white basketball player. That's he's just a gym rat. He's first one there. Floor burns. I mean, that's what we call him. We call him floor burns because he's always diving on the floor. Just a hustler, man. Just a thinker out there. He's not going to dunk the ball, but he's just a really smart
Just a
guy.
surgeon.
But no, that's Justin Watson is he's going to be where you expect him to be.
On the field for like 30 routes a game. That's where I expect him to be because I've been paying attention.
And then Justin Ross. Can they keep 7 wide receivers this year on this team? And if they do, is it just keeping the exact same number that they kept last year of players, only changing the fullback to wide receiver? That would be, they kept 3 quarterbacks last year, and Shane Buechele. Because you can have the emergency quarterback now and all that stuff, but he's got to count against your 53, whatever. So they kept 3 quarterbacks last year. 4 running backs, 1 fullback, so there's 5. They kept 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and 9 offensive linemen. Some people think they're going to keep 10 offensive linemen this year, and maybe 4 tight ends.
And there's almost no way they only keep 8. Like, that one's pretty much stuck there. You're not going to find room on the line.
On the defense, they kept 6 defensive ends, 4 defensive tackles, so coming up to 10. They kept 4 linebackers, which is the fewest that they've kept under Steve Spagnuolo. In 2019, they kept 6. 2020 and 2021, they kept 5. Last year, they kept 4. I don't know who the 5th linebacker would be if they're keeping 5 linebackers this year, because we know who the 4 are with Gay, Bolton, Chanel, and Drew Tranquil. Is there somebody that's, we got to have this guy on the squad? I kind of feel like 4 linebackers might be where they're at, and then 10 defensive backs in some way, shape, or form. In 2021, they kept 11. But 2019, 20, and last year, they kept 10 defensive backs. 5 and 5, cornerback safeties. 5 and 5, cornerback safeties. 6 cornerbacks, 4 safeties. So if they stay with the 10 defensive backs, and they stay with 10 defensive linemen, and they stay with 4 linebackers, and if they only go 2 quarterbacks, they could add 7 wide receivers and still keep 4 tight ends and 9 offensive linemen. Or they can keep 3 tight ends and 10 offensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks, and 7 wide receivers. It's a matter of where you want to allocate that. And sometimes you see this person is kept because they feel like this other guy can get through waivers. In the 53-man roster, maybe there's something like that going on that they may get to keep 7 receivers and then something else along those lines.
Do you want what it might be? It's not fun, but it would make a lot of sense. You got to keep Kadarius Toney on the active roster till you get to 53. Then if you put him on IR, he can be eligible to return as soon as you're ready to have him back. And while you're doing that, you're trying to slip somebody through the waiver system. That would be my hunch. And then somebody else will get hurt in the period of time that Tony's gone. Hopefully it's not a receiver, but somebody will eventually get shuffled around, and then you have a spot open up. That's my fearful prediction, I suppose, just because I don't know that week 1 Kadarius Toney makes any sense, honestly.
So the IR eligible to return, I think, is 4 games, though. So then he would miss the first 4 weeks of the season. Is it worth that to keep a Justin Ross? It might be. It might be in the.
It depends on where Tony's at.
Right, absolutely.
If you say we can have him back by week 3, you put him on IR, and we'll see him in week 5.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Because then you are taking less receivers, and if you're taking 6, you're playing with 5.
Yeah,
is essentially what you're doing. So if he ends up on the IR designated to return, then you can have 7 receivers kept. Takes somewhere less, a lower number, to sneak somebody through waivers, then put Toney on the IR, then pick that guy back up, and now you've got 6 receivers with Toney on your team as well. So now you've got 54 instead of 53, and it gives you 4 weeks to figure something out. Because by then, knock on wood, maybe something else happens.
Right.
You know, maybe there's somewhere else that you have to choose from, or injuries are going to happen in the NFL. We know that. It is just a part of it. It's not an if, but when you get injured in your career. And at the end of the season, everybody's battling something. So the numbers crunch is going to be fascinating because it seems like, again, it's training camp. We haven't seen games. We haven't seen preseason games. But it certainly seems like the Chiefs have 7 worthy players to be on this roster this year at wide receiver, and not when we've seen in the past, hey, Reese Fountain looks pretty good. Maybe he'll make the roster, because the end of the wide receiver group is sort of just like a mismatch. Just
that might be Nico Remigio this year if it wasn't so full in front of him. He's had some nice plays, some good catches, but he's too far OLI, as we say.
Yeah, right. And so it sort of feels like the question is going to be, do you go 7 wide receivers, and if you only go 6, is Justin Watson the odd man out? Well, Dave Toub likes him on special teams. I mean, he can be a 4-phaser player. Is Richie James the odd man out? Well, he's your punt returner right now without Kadarius Toney. And even if Kadarius Toney comes back, do you want him returning punts if you want him to be, quote-unquote, someone who could be a number 1 wide receiver? Well, you want to limit the exposure of the injury risk. Well, he got injured returning punts. Take him off that. Richie James can do that. Is it a Justin Ross you move on from? Okay, well, if you move on from Justin Ross and somebody picks him up and he becomes a stud, you feel like you had him for 2 years and you could have kept him and developed him in this system, and you did all of that work and somebody else went ahead and is reaping the benefits of that.
You got him up to speed, you pulled the cord, you let him spin off, and then he starts knocking around a whole bunch of interesting things for other teams. It would be very frustrating. It is a very interesting group also in part because of the specific guys who are in the conversation now, because MVS is not a traditional number 1 receiver, but he has to be treated as one because he's not running special teams. He shouldn't be. I don't want him to be. But he gets that type of treatment. Well, Sky Moore, punt returning up in the air, literally, I guess that's when there's a problem. You're not going to see him as a core 4 special teamer, even though he's a rookie entering his 2nd season. In another environment, he might be a guy that you want to have playing special teams, but that's not really making much sense for Sky Moore physically. Toney injured. And so Justin Watson, that's the Dave Toub vote of confidence, who also seems to have the Andy Reid vote of confidence, again, in terms of just like he's going to be where we need him, that entire scope. Rashee Rice, obviously on the roster. He could probably do some things in the special teams game, but it feels to me like the Chiefs are really hoping that he gets up to speed more quickly than Sky Moore did, to where he would have a chance to be a bigger contributor within the regular season, certainly into the playoffs. And to way overreact, Justin Ross looks like an NFL wide receiver in the small snippets we've seen. But even more importantly, for this specific conversation, he has been working as a gunner in punt coverage, and he could be a core 4 special teams guy.
That's a good point on the working as a gunner in special teams, because Nazeeh Johnson was the starting gunner for the Chiefs. When he went down, that opens up. And if you're going to make the roster as one of the last wide receivers, Josh, you better play special teams.
You just have to. It's been one of the issues for some of the other darlings in years past. You say, hey, this guy might be the superior receiver, but Marcus Kemp was going to be on this roster until Dave Toub had him pried out of his cold, dead hands because he was such an asset for him on special teams. So you at least have to be competent at it. If you can be really good at it, you will stick around for longer. And for Justin Ross, as a guy that has a little bit of a foot in both worlds, where there's a path for him to be an offensive-only guy who's a legit weapon. And in the meantime, you probably need to at least be good in that role on special teams, because Justin Watson will do that. Richie James will do that, and the Chiefs are going to need guys to cover punts.
Justin Watson becomes interesting because what do you lose in if you move on from him or you trade him, or right before cut down, or you release him? What do you lose in special teams? How much do you lose in special teams by replacing him with, let's say, Justin Ross playing that role? Is it a considerable amount to make up for the possibility of Justin Ross being your sixth receiver as opposed to Justin Watson, who, let's be real about Justin Watson, the guy plays a lot of snaps but doesn't see the football.
Yeah.
I mean, when he got inserted into one of the guys that was playing a lot more, many more reps, MVS reps came down. Kadarius Toney and McCole Hardman were both out. Juju Smith-Schuster missed a game with the concussion. I mean, you go through when he sort of started some of these games, 73% of the snaps, 1 target. 84% of the snaps, 2 targets. 62% of the snaps, 1 target. 65% of the snaps, 2 targets. 65% of the snaps, 2 targets. Now, I also should say 1 target, 1 reception, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 1 target, 1 reception, 2 targets, no receptions, 2 targets, no receptions. 74% of the snaps, 4 targets, no receptions. 37% of the snaps, 2 targets, 1 reception. 51% of the snaps, 2 targets, 1 reception. Postseason against Jacksonville, 56% of the snaps, 1 target, 1 reception. And in the Super Bowl, 60% of the snaps he played with 2 targets, 2 receptions. He played, you know how many times Patrick Mahomes threw the football in the Super Bowl? He played 60% of the snaps, and he saw the ball twice. That's where Justin Watson might be a really good special teamer. And Andy Reid saying the guy is where he's supposed to be every time, you're getting 100%, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But Mahomes ain't throwing him the football. Yeah. So he's out there playing a lot of reps, and he's not seeing the football. So one of 2 things. 1, he ain't getting open. Or 2, he might be there, but Mahomes ain't throwing to him for some reason. So what are those reasons? And how much do you lose in special teams by taking him off the team and adding a Justin Ross versus how much you can gain by what Ross can bring to the table versus what we know Justin Watson brings to the table?
He was 3rd on the team in wide receiver snaps taken last year by a high margin, which is just an outrageous thing.
And he had 1 more target than Sky Moore.
That's unfathomable. And I think every Chiefs fan on the planet, you say what was the percentage for the Super Bowl? 60% of offensive snaps?
And 2 targets.
I would have gotten that one incredibly wrong. And I know Justin Watson was on the field more than it seems like he was.
He played 33 snaps in the Super Bowl and saw 2 targets. He played 38 snaps against Jacksonville. So that is
unbelievable.
71 offensive snaps for 3 targets. In the postseason for Justin Watson?
I think the best I can do on him, I'd love to see, I'm sure there's some of that sort of like separation data and all of that shows how receivers get open. I think at this point, he's like the offensive version of a 2-down defensive tackle, a run stuffer in the middle. We're like, look, man, I don't need Keandre Coburn to be getting 10 sacks. If he wants to, that would rule, but we know this costs very little. He plays this role, which is to essentially, and this is where I think the analogy works, occupy this space. Now, for a guy like a defensive tackle, you are trying to maybe occupy a couple of guys or eat up a couple of gaps or be ready to shut a block. It's not nearly that simple. But when your job is be here, be huge, don't let them get through this space. For Justin Watson, it's like, hey, look, when you run this route, you're able to make the safety look over here. He has to. That's the rule of what their defense is set up in. And look what we're showing them. We are going to make the defense acknowledge you. And by doing that, that safety's half second of hesitation here is going to leave Travis Kelce in a wide open patch of grass. And in that way, that's where, hey, he's going to be exactly where you need him to be. When you are working with the precision of an Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs offense, precision matters, placement matters. Being able to manipulate the defense to both create space where we want the ball to go and to find space if you are, Travis Kelce, who sometimes literally just looks like he's scanning for some grass. I'll go over there and plant myself. Hey, Patrick, over here. Boop.
Thank you.
14 yards, first down. Looks like a polar bear falling to the ground. It's unbelievable. But I think that there is probably some hidden value in all of that I'm willing to accept. that I also have to extend to MVS because you want to play it's not as wide, I'm sure, as the Watson splits, but MVS plays a ton of snaps and will go games without ever really having an impact play from him. But that's part of what he's here to do. I just wish there were more guys on this roster who was like, all right, this is the dude they're feeding this year. Because is that going to be Sky Moore? I don't know.
And the difference is, and look, they're paid differently too.
Yes.
MVS and Justin Watson. But I don't think Justin Watson has it in him to do what MVS did against the Bengals. I don't think Justin Watson has it in him
100%,
to be that player. They're paid differently. So MVS is paid for somebody that is more likely to do that when called upon. He was called upon, he had to do that, and he had a career game. And he will always be remembered in Kansas City for what he did when so many people were injured. He was not, and he stepped up as one of the reliable receivers, and Mahomes kept feeding him, and he kept making catches and kept making catches, big catches, tough, contested catches that he kept making, and the Chiefs, win that game against the Bengals. Sky Moore had 33 targets for 22 receptions, and Justin Watson had 34 targets for 15 receptions.
That's crazy.
I mean, Sky Moore barely played last year, and he got the same amount of targets essentially and 7 more receptions on that. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, Justin Watson is always where he's supposed to be, and Mahomes, when he throws him the ball, he's catching it, blah, 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 moving the chains. He had a 44% catch rate, did Justin Watson last year. This is not to disparage him. It's to, when you're making those decisions, and it's in the margins, it's minuscule of who makes the team and who doesn't. And if you're only keeping 6 receivers, who do you have to move on from? I don't think they're moving on from Richie James, although it would cost them more money to move on from Justin Watson.
That's
than it
the
would
other
for
part of
Richie
this.
James.
I was just pulling it up because the numbers here are I remember them being convoluted at the time. It's a 2-year deal, but it's a 1-year deal. But that first year, there's about $1.4 million guaranteed to Justin Watson in this deal he signed this offseason.
They would essentially lose the money for Justin Watson. It wouldn't save anything. If they waived Richie James, it would save them about $500,000 against the cap. I don't know. Again, is it worth it from that standpoint to move on from Richie James, who feels like he offers some sort of a Kadarius Toney type skill set, even if it's diet? He offers something like that the Chiefs don't have outside of Kadarius Toney to bring that to the table. They've got 3 guys that could be for 3 spots, or they've got 3 guys that could be for 2 spots, depending on other players solidifying their role and saying, man, we got to keep this guy. Okay, we got to keep this guy. Look, man, we've got to keep 10 offensive linemen. We've got to go here. We got to do that. And if we keep 10 offensive linemen, is it more worthy to have this guy as the 10th offensive lineman or Richie James, 10th offensive lineman, or a Justin Watson or a Justin Ross?
You want to play the offensive line game so everyone just has these names and numbers in your head? You got your 5 starters, Wanya Morris, Nick Allegretti, you got a 3rd-round draft pick and a guy you just re-signed this offseason, Darian Kennard, Lucas Niang. That gets you to 8 right there. Excuse me, that gets you to 9.
Yeah.
Am I good at counting? I'm bad at counting.
Yeah. No, you're
Wanya, Allegretti, Kennard, Niang is 9.
That's 9 right there.
If you want to only carry 8, you're probably just saying it was a 1-year experiment for Darian Kennard.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Chiefs want to do that. And I also don't think they want to try to squeeze their numbers on offensive linemen. Allegretti is great. And the list I just gave you, they're not carrying Austin Ryder, who's currently on this team and is a backup center. Nick Allegretti has not been a backup center. He's a backup interior lineman. And I really thought was going to start somewhere. I thought he was going to get the Andrew Wiley treatment this offseason. But even with his versatility, these numbers crunches are tough.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be moving on from Prince. Take a Winogo at that point.
I didn't even mention him, and he was starting, I think, on left tackle with the 2s most recently.
Yep. So you would be moving on from him, unless you maybe you move on from Kennard, and you keep Prince there. But
I tell you what, I'm just going to throw out here as a quarter baked take. If Prince Tega Winogo makes the team and Lucas Niang doesn't, I don't think we can be shocked by that, because if the Chiefs believed in Lucas Niang, they wouldn't have made all the moves they've had at these flex tackle positions. And I think Prince has been rotating in just in front of him at camp. It's all been close together, but I think that's on the table, which would be kind of a bummer for that to be the end of Lucas Niang's time as well. I don't think it's going to happen, but you run out of spots.
But Darian Kennard isn't guaranteed a spot either.
No.
They moved on from other draft picks. He was a 5th rounder. So I don't think they would have an issue if they have to move on from Darian Kennard after only 1 year as a 5th round draft pick. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this Friday we're going to be out at Greenlight Dispensary for the Underground at Greenlight Independence. Friday we'll be there. Did I say Friday and Saturday? Friday and Saturday is when the Underground in Independence at the Greenlight location in Independence is going on. We'll be there broadcasting live for the entire show on Friday, and the Underground at Greenlight's Independence location is essentially a marijuana farmer's market. It's highlighting some of Missouri's best brands with their own knowledgeable bud tenders there to walk you through the process, where you can ask your questions to the people who know their products the absolute best. It really is a tremendous educational experience as you try your options to find out what's right for you in your cannabis journey. Or if you know exactly what you want, great news. You are walking into the single best spot I have been in terms of being able to see an incredible showcase of really some of Missouri's best, all from right there in the state of Missouri. It's the Friday and Saturday of the first full week of every month from noon to 8 p.m. We'll be out there again on Friday, broadcasting live and getting ready for the Underground. Again, Friday and Saturday, but we'll be there on Friday for the Greenlight Underground, the Underground at Greenlight Dispensary in Independence. For all of that info, for their other locations, their menu, their ability to order online and hit the drive-thru, it's a great setup. You can check all that out online at greenlightdispensary.com. Again, addresses, menu, everything else you could ask for, greenlightdispensary.com.
Put over $100,000 back in your pocket with the Freedom Loan, exclusive at Cap.
Who knows what's going to happen on this, but just looking at some of the contract breakdowns and things like that, if the Chiefs were to trade Justin Watson, say for another team's 7th rounder, 6th rounder, whatever, at the end of the season or end of training camp before the cutdown day, if they were to trade Justin Watson, the Chiefs would actually save $1.1 million against the cap. So if they were to cut him, they would lose that money. It would cost them as much to cut him as it would to keep him. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But even if they traded him and a team needed a wide receiver for Justin Watson and they would pay him $1 million, is all that team would be on the hook for is $1,080,000. And even if it's we'll give you our sixth and Justin Watson, you give me your sixth, and they move up spots in the draft so a team doesn't give up an actual draft pick. They just move down and around, and they pick up Watson, a wide receiver that could be valuable for them, that team, whatever, and all they got to do is pay essentially league minimum for that guy. That could be something that we see materialize at the end of camp to resolve the roster crunch, if that is somebody they go about needing to move on from.
It ends up being a pretty similar deal for Richie James too, by the way. $400,000 in guaranteed salary that would be lost if they were to release him, but if they wanted to trade him, that would be all but $150,000 would be taken on by another team. That one really, both of these seem unlikely to me, in part because, I think letting camp play out, some of these decisions might get made for the Chiefs. Tony getting hurt before the first padded practice actually began, being one example. The other thing specifically for James and Justin Watson is that I just cannot imagine a professional organization having a chance to bring in a guy like this just for some cash and then trading draft capital for him like a little bit later without that guy having done anything in a game to change his value. I just can't imagine any functional, competent organization doing anything like that.
Can't think of one. Not even at the same complex the Chiefs play at. Can't think of one team that may do that.
That storm last night didn't just blow Kaufman downtown for us. Man, you think about how convenient that would have been.
It would have been nice. It would have been great.
Doing sound off last night, we were briefly interrupted by some great storm shots from the 41 crew. It was a cool shot overlooking that one particular sports complex that one of them houses the greatest organization in its sport, and the other one tries not to embarrass you 3 games in a row every once in a while. And we're just thinking, if the Storm could have just sort of, in a harmless Wizard of Oz way, could have just picked up Kaufman and just moved it somewhere else, that could have solved us so much stress and so many billions of dollars. Didn't happen, unfortunately.
We were talking about Nicky Lopez and J.J. Piccolo saying that, they're in a gray area because, there are teams that are thinking about whether they're winning, but they don't want to trade a bunch of assets long term. If they get somebody back, they would like to get somebody with team control. And if the Royals are giving up somebody with team control, they want a major league, near ready or major league player. And it puts them in a gray area because, trading a player for 3 or 4 minor league prospects and years of control, that's not really the direction we want to go in, quote. So we're in a little bit of a gray area right now when it comes to that type of player. Text comes in and says, the same group that wants MLB-ready players in trades just drafted an 18-year-old catcher. Yeah, that is true. Other text earlier in the show at 913-912-4810 said you could also look at this as a total admission that they don't feel they can develop talent. So 19-year-old Dominican player, we'll screw him up.
Yeah, well. You can just rip off text for the next hour, honestly. I want to talk to Ryan,
Probably.
but I just...
Text says, preview of tomorrow's blockbuster deal. Salvador Perez traded for Rich Hill and cash considerations.
Can you acquire players for cash considerations? I
No.
don't think you can do that. You have to include at least a player who could play every position in the field, has been a good vibes guy, and still has some team
Another
control
team
left,
has
right?
to get them for cash considerations first, and then you can trade them.
So
the
then-
Royals don't have their allowance yet.
So it's cash considerations by proxy
Yeah.
of another team's cash consideration. So the team you're trading to him to for cash considerations is just the middleman. They're
Exactly.
going to take the cash considerations from the other team and then pass it on to you. Boy, that's convoluted
The
there.
Royals are trading a timeshare.
Text says, but the 40-man roster was full! Exclamation points. I'm so effing tired of hearing Royals execs say that. Your 40-man is full of chum. Who cares if Nick Whitgren comes or goes? This move does not make the team better. That's the only standard that should make the only standard that should matter. Exclamation points, all caps. Parentheses. Sorry to scream at you on a Monday morning.
They waited until the end of July July to give us a 3-game winning streak. And then immediately, that's what the text line said. Bobby Witt Jr. looked like a superstar this weekend.
right.
He looked like an actual, honest-to-goodness, bona fide superstar for definitely 2 games. And then he had a quieter day with the bat. So he was flashing leather. He looked like a superstar. And this is what we're talking about today.
57 games for Bobby Witt Jr. He's OPSing at 850. 57 games since they took him out of the leadoff spot. OPSing 850. Pacing over the course of the season for 31 home runs and 50 stolen bases and almost 120 RBIs. That's what he's done over 57 games. That is essentially, a third of the season. More than that. It's more than a third of the season. Yeah. And since June, he's batting over 300, OPSing around the same. But yeah, that's what Bobby Witt has been doing. And I'm not sure if that'll matter because they've got him for 4 more years after this year. This is year number 2 for Bobby. You got 4 more years. He might be young, but next year will be halfway through the team control for him. I made the comparison last night on Sunday Sound Off that I'm, worried that Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be the Jamal Charles.
I hated. I'm sorry. You have to get. I just cut off what I think is a good take to tell you that it took everything in my power not to interrupt you on TV last night because I hated this. Go ahead. You're right. I agree with you.
We watched Jamal Charles be amazing on bad teams, and then you see this good team and you go, man, boy, if you could have Jamal Charles on this, I would love to see Jamal Charles on a good football team. What would that be? Like the draw to the Chiefs was watching Jamal Charles play. And who knows, in 4 years, we might be talking about Bobby Witt being the Jamal Charles of this Royals era, and then he goes somewhere else. The Royals, I don't know, get good. They're like, man, if they could have kept Bobby Witt on this team, what he would be. Just don't want to waste the prime years of somebody who was so freaking good and electric and have him toil away on a 4-win football team. 60-win baseball team. So, yeah.
They're going to get to 60?
Sometime in the next 4 years, maybe once.
I'm talking about in the next 4 years. I think they get to 60 at least once or twice in the next 4 years, maybe.
Let's play this game in the cuts. Is Josh crying or laughing? It's hard to tell. We're talking about the Royals and Jamal Charles. It's both. It's always both.
Yes.
It's a good comp, Jason.
Thank you.
I freaking hate it.
I hope it doesn't end up being a good comp. I really do. I hope it ends up being it could have been a good comp, but the Royals did this and this.
For client portrayal and endorsement, the choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Past results afford no guarantee of future results, and every case is different and must be judged on its own merits.
6:30 p.m.
And now, on Sports Radio 810 Sports Center.
This Sports Center is brought to you by the University of St. Mary. The University of St. Mary Online offers convenient programs at an accelerated pace. Learn more during a virtual info session on August 3rd. Register at stmary.edu/RSVP. The Royals brought in their first sweep and first three-game winning streak of the 2023 season over the weekend, sweeping the AL Central leading Twins. Bobby Witt Jr. was the star of the series, highlighted by a walk-off grand slam to win it all Friday night and a 4-for-5 day with 3 RBI and a homer on Saturday, bringing the Royals to 31-75 after Sunday's win. However, as the MLB trade deadline approaches, the biggest news for the Royals is the departure of Nicky Lopez. Lopez was traded to the Atlanta Braves last night in exchange for left-handed pitcher Taylor Hearn. Hearn, like Lopez, is 28 years old and was acquired by the Braves just a week ago for cash considerations after the Rangers DFA'd him. Why was that the move? Who knows? We're talking Chiefs next in the Zone. Ryan Tracy joins us next.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. Mick Schaefer from St. Joe will join us in the 1 o'clock hour right now. Let's talk some NFL football, some Chiefs football with Ryan Tracy from Locked On Chiefs, founder of Athletic Matrix, RGR Football as well on YouTube channel. You can go and check out a lot of different things where Ryan Tracy can be found. Right now, he can be found here in this segment. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm keeping up. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine. We are talking football. We're talking pads on. We're discussing these things. So it's better than, the last time you and I talked was, I think, like early June, and we were just sort of talking about mini camp and things that could happen. Now we're actually watching some things and having some takes and things like that. So I am just curious so far through the camp, the acclimation period, and then pads went on Friday. But any observations that are standing out to you in this early part of the pads practice, time?
I like that it feels this year like the youth of this team, overall, top to bottom, and all 90 guys, is starting to really take over the overall attitude a little bit. Everybody's been talking about, Kel's getting into a couple of scraps and that kind of thing. Well, it takes two, and it takes younger players to have the attitude like, I don't care that he's a Hall of Famer. I can compete with him right now, and that's my job, and I'm going to do it. And I think that attitude is going to help this team overall.
The youth part of it is interesting that you went there, because it was such a question a year ago. I mean, what a difference a year makes. The Chiefs have another Lombardi trophy, and we're talking about how young those players were last year, and now this year, all that experience paying off, that, the secondary is not a question, knock on wood, not a question or concern right now. Who knows what happens the rest of training camp. This time last year, Ryan, the big conversation was who's going to be playing cornerback. Can McDuffie do it? Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams are looking good in camp, but somebody's got to step up and play. Brian Cook is now the third safety without Dan Sorensen. Do they get better there? Like, all these questions about some of the youth that was around this team, and Karlaftis, what he would do as defensive end. And we watched him this year, and there's the conversation just isn't there. It's sort of those are expected areas of what you think you can get in return and production, and let's look at other places. And that's fascinating, just from 1 year, a rookie season, to the next.
Yeah, I have to agree, and it gives you that sense that after what we've seen over the last two draft classes and being able to add some free agent rookies as well, that I think the comfort level for us as a fan base and us as a group that covers this team is much different from most of the rest of the league, because we've seen it pay off time and time again, certainly in recent history. So that normal kind of working without a net feeling that most front offices and most fan bases go through if you had this many first and second year contributors, we don't have that. I think that's, again, another advantage that allows you to play fast, to educate on the part specifically of Steve Spagnuolo, to educate his young defenders and really just let them run, take advantage of the, over-exuberance of youth, I'll call it.
Which is great. Is the personnel, I mean, we saw him play a year ago, and I think there's an expected level of production increase from the young players, whether that be Karlaftis or the guys in the secondary. And look, Juju not being there on the offensive side certainly affects things. And we'll see what Donovan Smith looks like at left tackle as opposed to what the Chiefs got from Orlando Brown. But personnel-wise, as you look at it now, an expected level of increase from the young guys, is this team better now than, on paper, than what they were towards the end of the season, on paper, personnel-wise?
I can't say that I agree with that, but I will put it this way. While they've taken a step back, obviously in experience, and quite frankly, a couple of guys that needed to spur different parts. Frank Clark had to be a motivational guy. He had to lift the output of the front. Juju had to perform not only some great acrobatic catches, but had to really be the guy in front of that room. Both those are steps back, but I will say that I think you're evening the floor of a lot of the talent. And so while they might be behind now at training camp, if we project out to the end of the regular season, I think they can either be at the same level or even slightly ahead if we see the same kind of progression from the second-year players and get a couple of the first-year rookies to really spark it and hit home.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is, okay, then what happens to make that? What happens to where we're watching this team mid-season, late season, and go, wow, they won a Super Bowl last year, and they're better this year personnel-wise? Is that Donovan Smith at left tackle, a wide receiver or two stepping up, like a Rashee Rice or Sky Moore taking a leap forward and overcoming what the loss is for Juju Smith-Schuster, FAU, Ominahu stepping up and playing, really well? Like, is in your mind, are those the things that happen on this team if they do, where you go, it's week 14 and we're like, man, this team is better than they were a year ago and they won the freaking Super Bowl last year?
It's all those things and more. I need Noah Gray to really take a step forward, and we've seen sparks of it here in camp, right? We need not only a Menahue, but Karlaftis to take a step forward.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see that time you spent with Tom Ali pay off, right? Because without Frank, you don't have that third down, we got to have it guy that can go help Chris Jones. And Chris Jones, conversation aside, we know he'll be back eventually. For me, it's Karlaftis in particular that I think really has the ability to take a big step forward. He outplayed my initial expectation of him coming out of college. So now, with that off-season training and the adjustment under his belt, now being a guy who can help Felix make the same adjustment, especially given that Felix is a little bit behind the curve, having missed OTAs, et cetera. Now he gets another perspective of not being the mentee, but the mentor as well. And I think that really sets up George Karlaftis to take a big step.
I put out last week or the week before a stat on George Karlaftis that I thought was interesting. Like, we had been talking about on the show about Karlaftis and, what the expectations would be in year number 2. And, just looking at the last 5-6 weeks of the regular season for George Karlaftis, and from week 12 to 18, he had 5.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 15 tackles. He was one of 7 players in the NFL to do that over that stretch, Chris Jones being one of the other ones. But Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Cam Hayward, Josh Sweat, and J.J. Watt were the others. And that is a group that is phenomenal for George Karlaftis to be among. Is that a stretch to where things started to click and it sort of came together that he had this spurt, this run of production, or is something close to that what maybe Karlaftis can be? Is that Karlaftis ceiling over 6 weeks that, okay, this guy can really, 7 weeks, this guy can really be this type of player, half the season? Or is there, something more there in your mind, Ryan, that, Karlaftis can rise to the level of, with Chris Jones on the field with him, that he can be an impactful player?
I think there is more ceiling there. I think, again, making that progression through OTAs in the offseason, going to camp and coming through the regular season, then seeing that kind of acceleration. The offseason gives you a chance to rest and recuperate, yes. It also gives you a little bit of rust. You got to take a little bit of step back. So where we are right now, a few days into pads, is very different than what we're going to see come week 1 and week 8 and week 14. And I do think there is a chance, again, to having taken a little bit of a step back probably just in recuperating from your rookie season, making all those adjustments. I think he can accelerate past what we saw last season and be a guy that takes that step, and not just for his own development, but for this defense's overall development. Allows them to have a little bit more versatility. We know he can play inside. We know many who can go inside. So we're changing the dynamic a little bit with having probably the premier pass rushers, guys that are going to play inside the tackles, attacking the shortest path to the quarterback, trying to continue what we saw in terms of pressure and sack production last year, but in a slightly different way because it's not coming around the edges as much. So I'm really intrigued about what that evolves and what kind of new looks we see, whether it's a NASCAR variation, whether it's some kind of guard center guard coverage, knowing that we have so many bodies and in particular length inside that you can deploy. I think that's really interesting for Joe Cullen in particular to start playing around with.
Ryan Trace is our guest, Locked On Chiefs podcast, RGR Football, founder of the Athletic Matrix, is our guest here in the zone. Chris Jones, you mentioned he'll be there, and we'll see when he shows up what that contract looks like, or if he plays out this contract this final year there, and we'll see what happens next offseason. But is there a way to quantify in your mind of what percentage increase the players have in production or value with Chris Jones on the field or off the field? Like how much of the George Karlaftis numbers of a year ago and the sacks and the tackles for loss and things like that, and what the improvement could be of Frank Clark or an FAU and a Minahu, guys that are out there and expected to offer production, what level increase of their play comes by number 95 being on the field?
For me, it's really looking at how teams choose to attack and try to block them up with 5 and certainly with 6 blockers. The big thing for me is you come out somewhere around 12 to 18% less double teams that they can send to George Karlaftis or they can send now to Charles Omenihu, right? That's the big thing, is providing one-on-ones for everyone else around him. Without Chris, and we'll see this in the preseason games, I'm pretty sure, at least one of them, I think what that shows you is that while they need to have that experience of getting doubled themselves, when they're able to just work a singular blocker, or in Karlaftis' case, have to work through a chip most likely, I think that's going to be what separates his game this season and the front this season. With Chris Jones being out right now, everybody's got to do a little bit more. They're going to get doubled kind of sporadically based on where the offensive play is trying to go, and so everybody gets a little taste of that. But with Chris Jones in the fold again come the regular season, that's going to allow them to take that they've learned and apply it to a singular blocker. And I think that's going to be the bump that in particular Felix Andico-Zama's going to take advantage of, Charles Omenihu's going to take advantage of. I do think they're going to chip Karlaftis a bit because they've seen enough on film that they're going to be a little bit concerned about it.
Interesting.
But I think those guys in particular will reap the benefit.
Do you become concerned? What's the timeline then in your mind with Chris Jones? Is there an area of time that you become concerned if he's still not in camp?
My kind of delineation point is preseason game 2, because that would be generally, if all things were even, when the vets would get some significant snaps, really knock that last layer of rust off with not going against your teammates, but going against an opponent. After that, I think it becomes about preparation time. And whatever happens with this contract situation, one thing's for certain, Chris Jones needs to have another exemplary season if he needs to get somewhere where he can either demand more money from another suitor, demand a trade, whatever this comes out to. And that performance is going to be based on him being not only in shape for himself. I do like what we see from him in the offseason. It does look yet a little bit leaner for a guy his size. That's impressive. And I think that's going to help him. But he's got to be prepared for that week 1. So kind of somewhere around August 16, August 18 is kind of my delineation point.
Interesting. Visiting with Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs, founder of Athletic Matrix, RGR Football as well. The extra roster spot without the fullback now. We've been talking wide receivers a lot over the offseason during training camp. A lot of people loving, Justin Ross, Richie James, Dave Tobe said is the, punt returner right now. Justin Watson is a 4-phase guy, so we know Dave Tobe loves him as well. And then the other 4 receivers that we know are going to be on the team, MVS, Sky, Kadarius Toney, and Rashee Rice. How does that roster crunch, play itself out in your mind? If there's no injuries or anything to where it's like, oh, those things typically work themselves out. If there's no injuries or anything, and they're sitting there trying to keep 7 wide receivers, or how does that work? Where's that extra roster spot come from? If this is a Chiefs team that goes, you know what, Justin Ross has earned his way on this team. We know what we get from Justin Watson. Richie James is the guy we went out and signed for a reason, and we don't want Kadarius Toney returning punts because we'd like him to be healthier longer. What happens with that roster crunch?
It's difficult to predict because of the volume at other positions as well. And it's also difficult for me to see through my tears because I hate to lose a fullback position on this roster, but that's me. I will say this. I think the key to making the offense be viable in terms of running back positions, I think there's 4 guys that you can see making this roster. The tight end position, I think you want 4 of those, especially if we are going to see as much 13 personnel as we're expecting. With 3 tight ends on the field, you have to have a 4th that you feel is viable in the pass game, not just in the sneak game. So I think that kind of lends itself towards, can you squeeze 7 wide receivers, which I personally would be a fan of given the volume of talent on this roster right now. But it comes down to me, the battle that's going to help decide that is the swing offensive tackle position. If they feel that they can get someone to emerge, whether it's Fonnie Morris, whether it's Lucas Niang, whether it's Marcelo Winago, who they feel can be a legitimate swing and play on both sides, allow Jawan to move over in the case of another injury to Donovan Smith, et cetera, that allows you to drop down from what I expected in OTAs to be 9 offensive linemen into the realm of 8.
Interesting.
And I think that's probably the spot where you're trying to think about who can be our interior guys. With Alec Reddy, you have a nice Swiss Army guy inside, so it's about that swing tackle spot.
That's really interesting because I kind of just assumed that, like, all right, the Chiefs are going to take 9. Do they take 10? And you're right. It becomes a matter of the volume, the area. Are you more confident in this particular player being able to play these positions, which then allows you to go and keep somebody else at a different position, whether that be Justin Ross or somebody else on the defensive line that impresses? Like, they've got that flexibility with that fullback spot. It's just a matter of allocating that. And I'm really fascinated to see what will happen with that wide receiver group, because I'm with you. I'd like to see 7, because if there's such an unknown as the health of Kadarius Toney throughout the season, it's kind of like 6.5 you're keeping, or Kadarius Toney and somebody else combined for the 6th receiver and your 5 other guys. When you've got somebody like that is as volatile as his availability, it would be nice to have 7 guys, and it feels like there are 7 worthy candidates of being on a roster, not just you're taking 7 because you feel like you got to take 7.
I agree with that, and I think it's been nice to watch the progression of not just Rishi Rice, who I think is coming in more in line of what we had hoped to see from Sky Moore last year, and having a little bit more hit the ground running kind of effect. But it's also been nice to see that Richie James, who was in what I thought was a pretty clear and delineated role in New York, be able to expand that a little bit. And for Justin Ross to obviously make what I've been cautiously skeptical of
me too.
In that progression, guy's got significant injury history. He looks like he's not only learning the offense, but he's got his body control back, particularly in air, which I think was one of the things that always separated him at the college game. That's a really great progression. Obviously, we've heard from Justin Watson. I know there's a couple of drop issues going on. He was out of the jugs machine this morning, I guess. That's all well and good, but I think the team likes him as well, and that's a great bed of floor for wide receiver production. And I do think if they have to do the dance with Kadarius Toney, having him on the initial 53 and then trying to put him on the IR and bring someone else up, you're also more likely to be able to stash an offensive lineman on the practice squad for a day to clear waivers than you are Justin Ross or Justin Watson or Richie James.
That's an interesting point. And also, I mean, I'm with you in the Justin Ross. I'm cautiously hopeful that they can get something from him, but since 2019, the man's played 10 games, whether that be college or the NFL, I mean, total. And so, there's a bit concern about, how good he can be when he's out there actually on the field. Ryan Tracy is our guest, Locked On Chiefs podcast, also founder of Athletic Matrix, RGR Football. We had mentioned earlier in the show, Ryan, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Drew Tranquil was talking, and he said, talking about the winning, the culture about, they see rings everywhere. Anytime they're showing like something on film, like there's these rings that show up. And he said, quote, as Andy Reid says, anyone can do it one time. What sets you apart is if you're going to go back to back. That really stood out to me because I don't know that we've ever heard Andy Reid sort of acknowledge that, hey, back to back is like precedent. It's historical level that this group of players can put yourself in. It's one thing to go and win the Super Bowl and talk about, our goals are always winning the Super Bowl, the Andy Reid answer that he'll give. But this is a player that said, as Andy Reid says, not once but twice, anybody can win it once. Going back to back is what will set you apart. I thought that was interesting hearing that from a player say that that's sort of Andy Reid and what he's talking to this team about.
I did too. do, and I think that it's very unique that it has to come from not only a player new to the roster, but a veteran new to the roster, because when somebody's been in the league long enough, especially with Los Angeles that has another talented quarterback, which is often in this league the differentiator, to just go about how different that is, I think really stands out that we're witnessing not just the evolution of Mahomes, and a lot of people have, the detractors have predicted that he's going to hit his ceiling here anytime. He's not going to be able to adjust his game. They're going to take away Tyrese. They're going to take away the deep ball. What is he going to do now? We continue to see Patrick Mahomes himself evolve. We're seeing Andy Reid evolve as well. And that comes with winning not only a championship, but now twice. And that point becomes, what else can we do to top this? And I love the concept of the visual reinforcement of seeing the ring, especially given how many new players are on this roster. Seeing it, not being able to hold it, keeping that hunger alive. There are guys that you'll never have to motivate, like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. But there are a lot of guys also that you need a little bit of fuel, a little bit of carrot to keep chasing, and I think that's a brilliant way to do it.
Last one for you. Have you developed a camp crush yet?
I always get a few. I would love to see, extra tackles on the field and a fullback and cram it down the running game towards the defense. But I have to give you Derek Prince's ability to catch the ball, which has been not only a pleasant surprise, but has confounded me because I didn't see it on his college film that I watched quite a bit of. That's got me crushing a little bit. I will say that I've been higher on Richie James through this offseason than most, and I'm glad to see that he seems to be progressing that way. Brian Cook's been a favorite since Cincinnati, so I'm glad to see his evolution there. And I'm really interested to see what happens now. Terrible injury to Najee Johnson, but this opens the door for Nick Jones to take a step forward. And if he can continue to push, I think he's shown enough spark that he's a guy that could be a difference maker, much like Jalen Watson was in some surprise performances last season. I really like Nick Jones as a guy that might be able to do that this year.
Like it. Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs podcast, RGR Football, founder of Athletic Matrix. Ryan, great stuff as always. Really appreciate the time. Love the insight, and looking forward to our next conversation. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one. Absolutely.
There's Ryan Tracy, Locked On Chiefs. Great stuff from him, and a lot of different ways that you can hear him talk about the Chiefs. Again, podcast RGR Football on YouTube, the channel that's there. You can go and subscribe to that. But good stuff from Ryan Tracy. The camp crushes. He's a fullback guy. He loves the fullback, and as he said, it's tough for him to see through the tears when there's no fullback of how the roster sort of comes together. But as he said, I'd like to see extra tackles on the field. Fullbacks, just cram it down another team's throat. But the players that came up that he talked about, Deneric Prince catching the football, maybe not there on his film throughout college, catching the football, and then Richie James. And I'm all good when he's talking about Richie James as being a guy that he liked. I've been on the Richie James bandwagon, and I tweeted out last week that, hey, everybody, come on, join us. Come on over here. There's a lot of room over here. There's a few of us just riding on this bus. We got a lot of empty seats here that you can come and join us in this Richie James bandwagon. But, yeah, I feel like I'm talking about Richie James the way that I did a couple of years ago about McKinnon, when they signed him from the 49ers, and people are like, oh, yeah, they got McKinnon. I'm like, no, I think McKinnon's going to be pretty good. I think we should be talking more about this Jerick McKinnon guy. And then eventually we did. What I'm saying is Richie James will catch 10 touchdowns in 1 month as a running back, oddly enough. That's weird. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue more Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Hello, friends. I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is you're running out of time. The good news is you're not out yet. You are running out of time to draft $1 million fantasy football team. That's right. Underdog Fantasy is running the largest fantasy football contest of all time. Of all time, Best Ball Mania 4. They got $15 million in total prizes, $3 million going to first place. And if you like fantasy football, which I'm just going to assume that you do, then you're going to love Best Ball. It as a format was new to me until a little while back when I started playing with Underdog a while ago. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to come together for Best Ball. You have your live snake draft. No waivers, no trades. You just draft your team, and that's it. Then Underdog sets the best lineup for you each week of the season. You can set it and forget it. until it's time to collect your cash. Last year, winners in the best ball last year, you know what they did? They drafted their team in July. Hello, everybody. This is the end of July. There's no such thing as getting ready too early on. But then, of course, August, we're getting fully into the teeth of fantasy football season. So what are you waiting for? Hop on in to Underdog Fantasy. I love it. I think you're going to love it, too. Just sign up at UnderdogFantasy.com or via the App Store with promo code Brisco. That's Brisco. And Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Brisco, Brisco. Must be 18 or over and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Chiefs fans, the Champs return for the home opener against the Lions on September 7th. Tickets for less.
I'm going to continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Drake. Thank you to Ryan Tracy joining us in the previous segment. Good stuff from him as we talk about this Chiefs football team and what they can do this year. 913-912-4810. Let's hear from Aaron Rodgers if we can. You know, Sean Payton had his comments about Nathaniel Hackett and about what the Denver Broncos had going on a year ago, and sat down with the writer from USA Today and had plenty of comments for what happened with the Denver Broncos last year and calling it the worst coaching job he's ever seen. And so Aaron Rodgers, who was close with Nathaniel Hackett, was asked by Peter Schrager, NFL Network was there, and here is Aaron Rodgers responding to Sean Payton's comments.
It made me feel bad that someone who's accomplished a lot in the league is that insecure that they have to take another man down to set themselves up for some sort of easy fall if it doesn't go well for that team this year. Thought it was way out of line and inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's names out of his mouth.
It's very direct from Aaron Rodgers. He's not happy about Sean Payton saying that about Nathaniel Hackett. Keep my coach's name out of your mouth. That seems to be the reaction around the league from Sean Payton is, boy, it's pretty surprising. And the irony is, while he's talking about the circus that was the Broncos last year and all of the things that were happening, he then is creating some of that headline circus. Let's talk about everything except what's going to happen on the field, because now it's the Sean Payton versus Nathaniel Hackett and people with their theories of, yeah, he's essentially saying if this season sucked, there's a lot that I have to make up for because these guys were terrible. There were 20 dirty hands around Russell Wilson. It's the president, the GM,
who's
the
still
coaches.
Here. The GM who's still here, by the way. The GM who I, Sean Payton, work for, or at least with, theoretically.
I didn't mean that GM. Like, you guys thought I was talking about that GM? I was talking about the car manufacturer. I wasn't discussing all of that.
Rodgers could have even taken it more personally if he wanted to, because not only his long relationship with Hackett, Sean Payton specifically said, look at the Jets. Look at the Jets. Right. They're doing hard knocks. Look at the Jets. They're going to be a circus. Not us, not here in Denver. We're serious businessmen now.
Because he followed Nathaniel Hackett. Right. Now Nathaniel Hackett's with the Jets, and there's more circus. It must just be what this guy does. He brings the circus. It's the greatest show on earth, not on turf.
That punk, not like me, Sean Payton, who definitely won't lead NFL conversations for the next week because of all these things I'm saying. Which I still like it when coaches and quarterbacks. I'm glad that Sean Payton said all that, and I'm glad Aaron Rodgers said all that. And I'm glad Robert Saleh said what he said, and I hope Nathaniel Hackett comes out in his next press conference wearing Kirk Cousins amounts of chains after a victory. Like, I hope he looks like plane ride home Kirk Cousins, or just lets it rip. I like more personality from guys who are not usually showing it. It's just also still striking. And then Sean Payton kind of backed it down a little bit, and that's kind of weak. Double down.
I regretted it as soon as I said it. Well,
yeah. Which one, by the way?
Agreed.
Because that was, what, a 30, 45-minute interview for there to be that much content out of it?
Yeah.
At least, I would say at least 25 or 30. So, yeah, I don't know that I think you probably regretted it as soon as you started reading your own quotes and then getting asked about it and then have people text you about it. I bet that you were regretting that there.
What I think is going to be pretty interesting is how Russell Wilson fits with Sean Payton, because there's sort of this expected he's going to be much better than what he was a year ago because Sean Payton is a proven coach, and the Broncos and how much they'll step up and what they'll look like. And if we're thinking that the Broncos are going to be good, now there's a lot put on the plate of Sean Payton just by simply fixing everything. And I actually think that was part of what Sean Payton was saying. Is like, oh, there's a long way to go. Mm-hmm. And this whole thing was a train wreck last year, just so everybody knows that if we struggle and win 7 games or something, we go, 7-10 or something like that, give us a little bit of time. Because I really want to know what Russell Wilson's going to look like with Sean Payton. Like, there is just expectation of, well, he's going to be better with Sean Payton because Sean Payton is an offensive mind. Okay, well, how much does Sean Payton then tailor his offense specifically to Russell Wilson? Because Sean Payton's offense had one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
In Drew Brees. The history of the NFL. And when you look at accurate passes, not even completion percentage, because not all completion percentage could be graded as a specific accurate pass. Okay, so this guy's the percentage of his passes that are deemed accurate, on target, exactly where they're supposed to go. Drew Brees is like head and shoulders above everybody when he was at the height with Sean Payton at like 55%. Like that's a high number. Like his completion percentage might have been above 70, but like 55% was deemed perfectly accurate throws. Russell Wilson's best year of his career is at 44. Best year of his career is 40. Last year he was at 38. And he's sort of come in right around 40 in his career. That's about 15% less than Drew Brees. And those throws from 10 to 20 yards, right around there. Not the 1 to 9 yards, right? Just right around the quick outs, things like that. But when Russell Wilson is targeting somebody 10 to 20 yards down the field, which is where Drew Brees destroyed teams, Russell Wilson in the middle of the field was 5.1% of a lower completion percentage and accuracy rate than league average. When throwing to the left side from 10 to 20 yards, that was down the middle, was 5.1%. Throwing to the left side, 10 to 20 yards, outside to the left, he was 4.9% lower than league average accuracy. Throwing to the right side, 10 to 20 yards, he's 1.2% lower than league average in accuracy. How's Russell Wilson going to fit in Sean Payton's offense when Sean Payton's offense maximized Drew Brees doing things that Russell Wilson doesn't do? Russell Wilson can throw the deep ball as well as anybody.
He could.
Well, he used to be able to.
He could.
He used
maybe
to be
he
able
can
to.
again.
Maybe he can. But he's not the guy that Drew Brees was.
That's right.
So is Sean Payton just going to fix Russell Wilson? Does he develop he's a really good offensive mind. Yep. So I doubt he's just going to try to take Russell Wilson and square peg round hole into what Drew Brees did really well. He and Drew Brees got together and designed an offense before Drew Brees even signed with the Saints. It's one of the more famous stories. Drew Brees wanted to go to Miami, did not want to go to New Orleans. He was scared off by Katrina, didn't know how much he would be viewed as a savior for the city and everything coming in, didn't know if he could handle that. Went to Miami, never even met with Nick Saban. They only had to meet with doctors.
That is so crazy, that part of the story.
He just went and met with doctors all day. He left Miami, took the visit to New Orleans, and hung out with Sean Payton the entire time. Sean Payton took him around town. They sat down and built an offense. Not once did they even talk to a doctor. Not once. They built the offense together before he signed his contract. Does Sean Payton do that with Russell Wilson and get together and say, all right, let's build an offense. What do you do well? Let's look at the things you... I can't imagine Sean Payton is just dumb to say, well, we're just going to have him do the same thing. But how are you then maximizing that with some of the players you have? Because they also don't have the guys that are just, hey, Tyler Lockett's down there.
Right.
Like the Broncos don't have those particular receivers and after the catch receivers.
And Tim Patrick sounds like he left with a not good looking injury today. It carted off left leg injury, foot and ankle area.
He's the same one last year, right? Wasn't Tim Patrick last year in training camp that they lost for the season?
Was he an ACL last year? It was a tendon thing, right?
Yeah, but they lost him for the season last year as well. Like Tim Patrick had a really good 2021.
Boy, is that right? That really, I think you're right.
I thought it was Tim Patrick that. Ended up getting injured in training camp, and they lost him. But
training camp last year was an ACL.
Yeah, like Jerry Jeudy
this year, something left leg.
Judy's good, but those guys that are sort of either going to catch the deep ball from Russell Wilson or going to feed him, and then after the catch, we'll see what they do there. And Javonte Williams still recovering. What's he going to look like when he's back full speed? But that was a pretty nasty knee injury. So I've got real questions about the Broncos this year as how much better they're going to be than a year ago. I expect them to be better because I think you've got somebody who knows what he's doing as a coach.
Right.
And is more organized.
Right.
But is that going to result in 4 more wins this year to where, okay, now this is an 8 or 9 win team that's fighting for a playoff spot. I don't see that from the Broncos this year.
No, I don't either, and to the point that I barely think of them unless Sean Payton is saying something wild or Russell Wilson's doing something kind of corny. I look at that question you ask. Okay, so how is that marriage going to happen? I think you've landed on what it just has to be. Yeah. I think, which is that that has to be collaborative. That has to be Sean Payton going, look, I mean, here are the places where I was able to speed things up for Drew Brees or to take some things off of his plate, because for all of the hyper accuracy and the quick processing that he was able to do, you also didn't ask him to live life like Russell Wilson was largely asked to live last year, even in a year that was atrocious on him and the team and everybody. People are saying there were a lot of dirty hands in that organization.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. But I think that it has to be, I think it's a twofold gamble for the Broncos, and really maybe an investment more than a gamble. One being, hey, Sean Payton, you are the best available offensive mind. You saw what happened last year. You watch Russell Wilson's film for us, and you come back and you tell us, what is your fix? Like, what is the best you can get out of him for the foreseeable future? And Sean Payton will be in Denver much longer than Russell Wilson will be, and I think the Broncos knew that when they made that move to go get him. So it is a long-term investment in the pliability in a lot of ways of Sean Payton, of his offense. But it has to start with him being pliable to Russell Wilson's skill set, which is going to be different than the Drew Brees era. And we're still not even sure how much of Russell Wilson is still in there, which makes them interesting. I just don't think of them very often at all because we usually talk about contenders or teams that can give the Chiefs some problems. Russell Wilson's Broncos last year gave the Chiefs problems twice. Those games were stressful and annoying twice. But I don't think that this team's going to be very good unless there's something magical for Sean Payton to pull out of Russ still.
The over-under, 7.5 for the Broncos this year?
It feels right.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the schedule or anything to go game by game, but that feels about right.
I mean, just at first blush, without really getting into some of the totals that eventually we'll do as we get closer to the season, but are they 3 wins better than a year ago?
There were legitimately 2 games that they should have won. I don't remember specifically, but I think there were a couple of games they should have won if they were coached competently. Maybe just one of those that you can really count.
So maybe that Seattle game where they lost by 1. Then they beat Houston by a touchdown. They beat the 49ers by 1.
Completely forgot about that game.
They lost to the Colts and the Chargers in overtime. They lost to the Raiders in overtime. They beat the Cardinals. They lost to the Chiefs by 3. They beat the Chargers by 3. So, I mean, they could be. I probably won't touch. I wouldn't put my money on them winning 5 more games than a year ago because, they still have to go and win those games that they won a year ago. They still have to go and win those 5 games and then add 3 more along with it when I'm not sure this roster overall and Russell Wilson is going to take this massive leap forward just because Sean Payton is there. And I think there's something to Sean Payton talking about what happened a year ago because I think there's a little bit of setting up this could be a bad season, and I want people to know that this was such a train wreck that I took over.
But man, the conversation Monday after week 2 is going to be hilarious. We're going to have to be patient, everybody, because the Broncos open with the Raiders at home and then Washington at home. They could absolutely start 2-0. And then they go to Miami, and they're going to get their teeth kicked in week 3. But everyone's got to hold their ground when the Broncos are 2-0 this year. And if they lose either of those games, their season's already over, and that's peak hilarity. But if they're 2-0 after 2 weeks, and then it's Miami, Chicago, New York, Kansas City, Green Bay, Kansas City again, and then the bye, and then their season will be over. They'll get to come out of the bye week with the Bills, and then fully kind of put that horse down.
You just glossed over New York and the Jets, in which they play in week 5.
Yeah, I was just sort of including them in that little pocket. Did I skip them entirely?
No. Just went Chicago, New York, Kansas City.
Yes, right.
And it's like the Jets. That might be a bigger one.
That's a good point
for both teams.
Good point.
So, yeah,
Nathaniel Hackett revenge game.
Oh, God. They're gonna pour. If the Jets can score more at the end of the game, they're gonna keep scoring and keep scoring and keep scoring.
Hackett might get a handoff. They'll figure out how to pay the fines for that later.
How is that possible? I'm not sure, but they're gonna be able to do it.
Seems illegal.
It's weird
and dangerous.
Yes.
Not wearing pads.
The Chiefs play the Jets the week before the Jets play the Broncos, and they play the Broncos the week after the Broncos play the Jets, if that makes sense. They're going to get the Jets overlooking the Chiefs on, Sunday Night Football, because they're ready for the Broncos the next week for the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game.
Frothing at the mouth.
And they're going to get the Broncos after the Jets because the Broncos just got punked and they're demoralized and they're walking and they're sad and they're sort of the
Michael Cera, Arrested Development.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Michael Cera, Arrested Development. That's right.
Down.
Or the end of the Hulk with the song playing and he's just got his thumb out and it's the sad music there. That's what the Chiefs will get the Broncos then. Yeah.
Short week, too. Broncos Jets, October 8th. Thursday Night Football, October 12th. Broncos come to Kansas City. Can I bet on? I just want to bet on that game now. I'm going to see if that's
probably can.
Back on the boards.
You probably can.
Hello.
You look that up. We'll take a timeout while you go and bet on that. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com. In the 8...
We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up at 1 o'clock. KSHB 41 Sports Director. We get some Learn Funniest Best presented by Pyramid Roofing coming up in the 1 o'clock hour as well. We've talked about the Kansas City Chiefs trading of Nicky Lopez for Taylor Hearn.
The Royals, the Chiefs didn't trade him.
We've talked some Kansas City Chiefs, and we've also talked about the Royals trading Nicky Lopez.
The Royals just traded John Ross for a hot dog vendor. Weird.
They actually traded John Ross for Taylor Hearn. That's what was odd. The Chiefs also acquired Taylor Hearn.
That's actually true. Hold on. They traded Nicky Lopez for John Ross.
You know what? Let's see Nicky Lopez in a Chiefs uniform. The Royals players that could play for the Chiefs, go. Bobby Witt.
I mean, I think Andy Reid could find a use for Bobby Witt.
For sure.
Is that the only guy on the list?
I bet Salvi could play the offensive line.
I know this is going to sound insane. He's not big enough.
Well, yeah, you're right. He's big baseball-wise. You're right.
He's baseball huge.
It's funny. I see how big he is. I'm like, he can play the offensive line. He's fine.
Well, let's see. What's Creed Humphrey? You look up Salvi. I'm going to find Creed Humphrey's numbers. He might be too tall to be it. I think he might be. He could certainly put on the weight and then make it work. I think.
Salvi is listed as 6'3", 255.
Creed's listed at 6'4", 302.
Yeah, so
Salvi, he'd have to put on some weight.
He'd need to be a linebacker. 6'3", 255. Salvi is a linebacker. I don't know. I don't think that sideline to sideline is going to get there for him.
I don't think it. It's just so funny to think about too, because really, it's sizes in sports are absurd.
Don't think that one's going to work.
Every NBA player, even that guy, is bigger than you think. All of them.
Could Kyle Isbell be like a running back? Athletic enough, shifty enough, strong base.
I think if you started him running routes early, maybe he's one of those real pesky slot receivers.
Okay.
How tall is Kyle Isbell? Let's play this game.
Smaller guy. He's small for baseball. Drew Waters could be that guy. You know, Drew Waters. He's taller than Isbell, I think. I'm assuming he is.
Kyle Isbell's 5'11". That's an NFL wide receiver.
Yeah,
he's not playing the outside, but yeah, he could definitely
be a wide receiver.
He's an OW. He's like Dexter McCluster. He'd be an offensive weapon.
Is that right? He's just a weapon, is what he is.
I think you get Bobby Witt on a little end around, a little jet sweep.
Mm-hmm.
I think Andy Reid would legitimately like to just give that one go.
MJ Melendez would clearly play a position in the NFL that he's not used to playing. He's played wide receiver his whole career, but they've moved him to safety just to see what it looks like. Let's see what happens.
Jordan Lyles could punt.
No. He'd end up giving up home run punt returns.
That's probably true.
Everybody would score on his punts.
That's once again winning pitcher Jordan Lyles, right?
Yeah, you're right. You are right about
Some
that.
respect on that name.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Lockdown Lyles.
That's what everybody calls him.
I've been trying since
the nickname.
Since there was the talk of like, could a team be interested in Jordan Lyles? Sorry, you mean Lockdown Lyles? You mean no one going Yardborough? That one's not quite as smooth.
You know, oddly enough, I think one of the better players that could translate would be Hunter Dozier as a linebacker, like 6'4", 230. And he's pretty athletic for being 6'4", 230. I think Dozier
played hockey. He's got the face for it. You know, like he can put his nose in there.
I think out of all people, which the Chiefs might acquire him. I don't know. Go get him.
Also, would have a great name for a linebacker. Dozier? Are you kidding me?
Oh, the Bulldozer.
He's either the Bulldozer or he's putting you to sleep. Either way, all-time nickname if he was a football player.
That's absolutely right. So the Royals traded Nicky Lopez for a player named Taylor Hearn, and he is in AAA. He was DFA'd last week by the Rangers. The Atlanta Braves acquired him for cash, and the Royals acquired him for Nicky Lopez. And we'll see what happens over the next, 5 o'clock tomorrow, 24, 28 hours. What are the moves the Royals make? No game today. Plenty of time to wheel and deal.
Yeah, thank goodness, too. Sure, they're going to use that time really well.
Transactional, Josh.
I'm feeling transactional.
They are. Transactional is what they're going to be. More transactional than you would ever expect.
Can I try to soften the blow for Nicky Lopez?
Yeah, let's
do you mind?
Sure.
Because here's what I have to do for Nicky Lopez. I know he's not getting a ring from Kansas City in the baseball sense, but who gets the ring is back, baby. Ruback Fine Jewelry, back with us. Once you've been to Ruback one time, you're a customer for life. You can call or text Hal today.
Are you going to give him the ring?
I'm going to give Nicky Lopez the ring. He's the one who gets the ring because I think there is something quintessentially baseball about a utility man who could play genuinely 7 spots in the field, apparently, and at least, decent levels. quintessentially baseball about a guy who can play anywhere, good vibes guy, been a baseball grinder throughout his career, gets all the way up through an organization, and ends up being kind of a fan favorite in one of those special ways that only a utility man really can be. So I'm wishing Nicky Lopez all the best in Atlanta. I'd be perfectly happy for him to get a ring there, but if you want to get a ring, just go to Ruback Fine Jewelry. Schedule your appointment for their Everything Must Go sale before it's too late. Amazing deals, and the sale dates go from August 21st to September 16th. You can call 913-649-8811 or visit them online at ruback.co.
If you want to be discouraged, the J.J. Piccolo comment of we'd like to acquire someone that would add to our major league team and near ready for our major league team. When you have guys on major league teams and you're trading them for 3 or 4 minor league prospects and years of control, that's really not the direction we want to go in. So we're a little bit in a gray area right now when it comes to that type of player. He continued, I think we can add anywhere. You want to add to your own farm system, you want to add to your major league team. We have more of an interest based on the core of our team right now that we think is our future to adding pieces that will help put that team together. That's our preference. But if there's a deal out there that makes us feel like this is going to help us long term, I don't think we can ignore it either. So we could go either way. They want to help build around the core of this team right now. And that core is
Hey, Kansas City, Stephen St. John here. Let me tell you about my incredible experience with Border Magic. They just installed stunning custom concrete landscape edging around our entire home. Our landscaping...
But I'm seeing the Broncos at 8.5 as the total. I'll take the under.
I thought you were talking about the Chiefs-Broncos game.
No. The Broncos total this year in wins 8.5. Yeah, sure. They're gonna
I'll do some futures.
They're gonna almost double their win total from 5 to 9. Yeah, sure.
They're minus 215 to not make the playoffs. They'd be plus 180 to make the playoffs. What exactly is the path?
I'm not sure about that. Yeah,
I'm not in the business of betting on minus 200 stuff for the most part, but what are we doing?
Yeah. I would put money on the Chargers over of 9.5 to get to 10. I would put money on that with Kellen Moore, and if you can get some health from the team, if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams can stay healthy, it's a question mark around those particular players. But I mean, Justin Herbert last year, when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were healthy, was the number 2 quarterback in the NFL in expected points added per play, behind only Patrick Mahomes, who was number 1, independent of whoever was on the field, which, by the way, is great. Mahomes was number 1, no matter who was on the field, at .23 per play. Herbert, with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the field, was at .2. Josh Allen, with Diggs and Davis, was .18, and Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins was .13. Mahomes, regardless of who's out there on the field, .23, number 1 in the NFL. But showing you that Herbert, when he had those guys, was a premier quarterback when they were healthy. Now you throw in Quentin Johnston. Is Kellen Moore going to have him throw the ball down the field a little bit more? Does J.C. Jackson remember how to play football? Things like that could be differences for the Chargers, but we'll see.
Give me the over on the Chiefs at 11.5, Chargers at 9.5, and the under on the Raiders at 6.5, and Broncos at 8.5.
I love it.
I do too.
I love it.
The Broncos have the best number there at minus 110 on their under.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I'm just going to be over here for a little bit, just seeing if I can move some money around.
Mick Schaefer's up north. He is in St. Joe, or depending on your location, he could be east, west, or south, or northeast, or northwest, or southeast, or southwest, whichever. Mick, is there a team that you've been studying that you'll place the over or the under on the win totals, or there are 4 or 5 of those teams, Mick?
Mill Valley, over 11.5.
I like it.
Hammering it.
Absolutely like it. Mill Valley to end their season in Pittsburgh, Kansas. What's that? Minus 110? Hammer it.
It would be, yeah. It's happened the last 4 straight years, and actually 6 the last 8 they've ended their season in Pittsburgh with a win.
Yeah, minus 110 might have been a little too conservative. Maybe like minus 220 for them to end their season in Pittsburgh.
Now, Mick, is that a dynasty?
Yeah, I mean, what isn't? Well, what is a dynasty if that's not 6 out of 8 years you win championships, 4 in a row? That's got to be a dynasty.
Yeah, without a doubt, that is a dynasty.
A few more. You might need to create another term beyond dynasty.
Yeah,
Super Dynasty.
Super Dynasty?
I think Super Dynasty is what it was in the ancient times. If you had a dynasty that went on for a long time, it's called the Super Dynasty.
The Gladiators.
Juggernaut Dynasty. Epic Juggernaut Dynasty.
Yep. Yeah. Unstoppable force, epic Juggernaut Dynasty.
When a dynasty establishes itself for generations, it becomes an empire. So you have the
Empire. Epic Juggernaut Dynasty.
That's yours.
Wow,
Mill Valley Empire.
That's the Mill Valley Empire. Wow, that's a great point. Yeah, no, that's we were talking about, if the Chiefs were to win the Super Bowl this year, and looking at the 5-year run from the Patriots from 2014 to 2018, and then saying, like, okay, does this put them in contention to have, like, the greatest 5-year run ever? Because Drew Tranquil said, Andy Reid says that anybody can win the Super Bowl once. What'll set you apart is if you can win back-to-back Super Bowls, which I noted because I don't know that we've heard anybody say that about Andy Reid talking to his team in that manner about not only what this season will mean to win it, but what this season can mean from a historical perspective of this group of players in here, what you guys can do in winning back-to-back and the rare opportunity that's there of what the 5-year run could be for the Chiefs. But it would pale in comparison to Mill Valley. You're right.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
And I think, with the Chiefs, they've been so great at everything, you almost might have to extend what is normally a 5-year run for a team. Maybe it's 8 or 10, right? Or maybe it's
Could be
the entire length of Mahomes' stay in Kansas City. We were driving up today to camp, and my guy in the car here with me, DeQuarius Bowser, greatest name ever, by the way.
Great name.
DQ Bowser. We were talking. We were debating, like, okay, how much longer is Mahomes going to play? I'm like, I think at least 10 years. He agrees. Like, all right, 13 more years, get him to 40. How many you win? And I'm like, well, he's won 2 in 5 years, so he'd be on pace to win 5 or 6 more. Now, I don't know. That feels ridiculous, right? But give me another 2 or 3 years, and if they got 1 or 2 more, then absolutely you would have to go back to, they're on that pace. But 1 year at a time. 1 year at a time. But it's ridiculous. He's resetting everything, not just touchdown marks and individual statistics, but expectations for franchises now.
Yeah, I think I've said that Mahomes has 3 more in him, and people are like, "Whoa,
seasons."
Super Bowls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Super Bowl seasons in them.
Oh, I thought you meant kids.
Could be. I mean, they got the money. Sometimes people stop having kids because it's too expensive. I don't think they have to worry about that.
He's never going to be kid poor, is he?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have to worry about paying for any of his daughter's weddings if he has multiple daughters. So I think he'll be fine with that. So there's nothing to worry about from that standpoint. But I've said that he's got 3 more, and people are like, 2 more. Let's maybe calm down. I'm like, okay, that's fine. He's got 2 in 5 years, so I think he can win 3 more because some of these teams that are in the AFC that are competing still have to go through their changeover in what the second era of that run is for those teams. The Bills are getting close to having to figure out what their second era of Josh Allen's going to be. The Bengals are a couple of years away from having to do that. Do they sign T. Higgins? They're going to sign Jamar Chase, but Joe Burrow, what's that contract look like? The Chargers and Justin Herbert, the Baltimore Ravens, like these teams that are competing with the Chiefs in the AFC haven't got on the second act of that quarterback, and the Chiefs already have done that and won a Super Bowl doing that in the second act. So, yeah, I think there's 3 more for Patrick Mahomes. That's just, my personal opinion. But also, if one happens this year, we were looking at 5-year runs. And the best 6-year run would be the 4 Super Bowls by the Steelers in 6 years, back-to-back, lost in the divisional round, lost in the conference championship game, and then back-to-back again. But if you take off either the last year of that to make it a 5-year run or the first year of that to make it a 5-year run, they would have won 3 in 5 years, and the years they didn't win the Super Bowl, they didn't make it back to the Super Bowl. And only one time they went to the conference championship, and they had a back-to-back. That would be the Chiefs with a Super Bowl. They'd have a back-to-back, and the years they didn't go to win the Super Bowl, they went to the Super Bowl and lost in overtime in the conference championship game.
That's the deal. I don't know if anybody, the floor of anybody's 5-year run has never been higher. Right? I mean, the 2 times they didn't make it, he got to overtime in the AFC Championship game. He's never ended the season shy of overtime in an AFC Championship game. I mean, they're that close to going to 5 straight Super Bowls. Now, look, they got to one by the skin of their teeth. They won 2 very close Super Bowls that could have gone either way. So you can play that game both ways. But I mean, they're a couple plays away from being in 5 straight Super Bowls.
Visiting with Mick Schaefer, he is up at training camp. We'll get some learn funniest best.
And I can tell you about those plays, by the way.
He is
board. Yeah. And then what was the biggest play of the Bengals game?
The Joe Burrow escaping the sack when.
Probably
that one.
It was the Chiefs were. It was a tie game at that point in the fourth quarter, and Chris Jones had him on 3rd down, and Frank Clark was right there, and somehow he got through and picked up the 1st down, and they end up kicking a field goal on that drive. Chiefs get the ball back and kick the field goal to tie it at the end of regulation.
Or he makes one of those completions at knocking on the doorstep at the end of regulation to finish the touchdown drive and not just take the point.
But you get the sack there. The Chiefs get the ball back. They could, in theory, take the rest of the time off the clock and do what they did against in the Super Bowl and kick the field goal to end regulation and go, wow, how'd they win that one? They got away with that one in the second half. Didn't happen. But we'll see what happens this year. But Andy Reid saying anybody can win it once, which is not true because, as one of the texters said, Bengals, Lions, they do not agree with that statement.
Lions do not.
Any team.
This could have been my learn, but I heard you that JFK has only missed one Lions playoff win.
Oh my gosh.
Where's he been?
Where have the Lions been is the question.
In Detroit.
Have they been in the same place? Yeah.
We know they've been in Detroit. We know that. Man, that is wow. But you know what? Lions are the darlings of the NFC. They're the darlings of that division too.
I'd love to see them break through. Yeah. And in the NFC, I mean, I think they can. It's almost like the AAA of the AFC.
Well, I mean, in that division, you got to worry about the Vikings and how many one-win or one-score games are the Vikings going to win this year, like they won, 8 of them last year. There's no Aaron Rodgers, and the Chicago Bears are still trying to build, but, second-year Justin Fields or whatever. The Detroit Lions are poised that they could win that division and host a playoff game.
Knocking on the door, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Lions are back and to the left.
Are you serious?
Sorry, guys. Too soon?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, can you go
Really?
back and to the left? There's right there to the left of me is the door.
Door? Sure, I'll
It's
find my way out there.
right behind. Just go back.
On my way.
Get your ass out of here. Mick Schaefer, I dropped my pen. I'm so upset about that.
That was Josh Brisco, by the way. Make
So
sure
upset
everybody
about
knows
that's right. Joshua Brisco
Hi.
at Union Broadcasting.
There's an E at the end there.
As far as you know.
Yep.
Mick, you've been up at training camp and watching some practices. What are you seeing from some of the teams or some of the players out there? And are you in person becoming more and more enamored or excited about, one, what Rashee Rice can do this year as a rookie that a lot of people are saying, well, this guy actually looks a little bit better than even Sky Moore did a year ago. And, of course, the camp darling of Justin Ross.
Yeah. So we're going through our Zapruder film today of all the Chiefs practice. And there's a lot that stands out. I think Drew Tranquil.
Were you doing that on the grassy knoll?
It really
looking over
is
the...
kind of a grassy knoll that you're on.
Wow.
I was going to say that you shoot from, but you film from.
We're still doing this.
Film from.
No, we're still doing it.
Wow, still happening.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Moving
Drew
on.
Harvey Tranquil, I think, is
really. I'm so disappointed. Typically, I've just the steering wheel is broken off this car, and I can't get it. I'm trying to hotwire it, trying to get the car back. The steering wheel, it's hit an iceberg, and now it's just off on its own.
So we can make jokes about the Titanic.
That's a different tragedy.
Yeah, I know. The fire hose is now just I've lost control of it, and who knows what happens. I'm not in control anymore. Anyway, go ahead, Drew Tranquil.
No, look, he's a guy that's played all three linebacker positions. I think we think of a guy that's going to take snaps away from Willie Gay, but he's a guy that's capable of playing anywhere in that second level. He's worn the green dot for at least one day when Bolton was out and was able to right away be able to be the captain of that defense and basically tell everybody where to go and what they're doing. And then listening to him today, I don't know if you guys have played the sound from today, but I mean he is impressive behind the mic. Some of the stuff he was saying, I mean, it sounds like a coach already, and was very humbled at the opportunity to play with the Chiefs. A lot of great sound bites. So just you can tell that guy is a leader right away for this defense, and he's looked good on the field. And just hearing him for the first time off the field today was very impressive. I throw him in there, and then Rice, yeah, absolutely is one of those guys. Look, I mean, the receiver room doesn't have a whole lot of competition. I mean, this is the best team in the NFL, but you could make the case that this is going to be the easiest receiver room or one of them for a guy like Rashee Rice to come in and break in and make an impact. And you could see that he and Patrick Mahomes, who were, they were throwing passes. Mahomes throwing passes to Rice before he was even drafted by this franchise and built a rapport with him way back then. You can tell they kind of had that head start. And it was fun talking with him today as well. He says he has not puked, guys. The last time we talked to him. Important update there. Okay, courtesy of KSHP 41. But I think those are the first two. When you asked me that question, those are the first two that of the guys where you kind of don't know what they are, who they can be. Those are the first two that come to mind. And then also Wanye Morris is a guy that's run with the ones at left tackle and right tackle so far. And I think you could – he's that swing tackle. He's that third tackle right away, or at least he is right now in camp.
It's interesting. You mentioned Rashee Rice. Sam Munson, Pro Football Focus, tweeted this out yesterday when the Chiefs put out a video of Rashee Rice. And he says Rashee Rice already looks a better wide receiver than his college tape. Casey has such an exciting group of wide receivers, largely unproven, but crazy talented and with a magician throwing them the football.
Yeah, I agree with some of that, the magician part and the Rice part. I wouldn't call it, I don't know, an amazing group. Maybe it is. Maybe
He said exciting group of wide receivers, largely unproven, but crazy talented. I don't know about crazy talented as an overall group, right? I mean, Sky Moore can be, but I will say Sam Munson loved Sky Moore coming out of college. He was a huge Sky Moore fan coming out of college. And if he's saying,
he's looked better this camp. And let's be honest, it's not like he's going to, he can't make big strides from his freshman NFL year, but he needs to, right, to justify that second round pick and to be a guy for this team. And Chiefs might need him to step up, and he made a couple catches today. It's a guy that stands out of camp because I think Mahomes is very comfortable with him is Justin Watson. He's catching a lot of footballs, man.
It's interesting.
And we talked with him yesterday or a couple days ago. He's like, honestly, I had 5 or 6 teams interested in me, but I was always coming back here. I think it's smart, right? He's a smart guy from Penn. He realized I was with Tom Brady, and now with Patrick Mahomes, I can stay with Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I'm gonna stay here, and I think he's a guy that's solidified a spot on this roster, especially if you think, and a lot of people do, that they'll start the season with 7 wide receivers.
Yeah, if they start with 7, Justin Watson's on the team. We were sort of talking about it as
the other Justin, I think, is the one you want to worry about. Josh is most favorite player, and I think he would be kind of the 7th guy if they went to 7.
Look, obviously Travis Kelce is the main weapon here. I just think this offense needs a second shooter. I think Justin Ross could be that guy. Hello?
Talking about at the craps table?
We were past that.
Yeah, I thought we were too. Yeah, interesting. We were talking about Justin Watson, and he discussed him and his offseason on Saturday, right? It was Saturday, right, that Justin Watson was talking?
I think it was actually yesterday.
It was one of the days over the weekend. It ended with started with an S and ended with a day.
Time work. We've talked about this over the years. Time is different in St. Joe. It's like that water planet in Interstellar.
Every day's a Wednesday in St. Joe.
Perfect.
Every day's a Wednesday.
Perfect.
That's right. So we talked over the weekend about the different teams he was looking at, and like you said, he was always wanting to come back to the Chiefs. And then Andy Reid talked about he's there in the spot that he's supposed to be, and you can count on that. We went back and looked at all of the reps that he had and all of the percentage of snaps that he had and such few targets that he had last year. And so, I think the Chiefs trust him. I think Dave Tobe really likes him, and he's a 4-phase guy as a special teamer. And if you're going to make the squad as one of the last wide receivers, you better play special teams. And Justin Ross is covering kicks now and covering punts, and so he's going to have to play some special teams and be a gunner because Najee Johnson was the starting gunner for the Chiefs, and he's out. He's gone for the season, and that sucks. And somebody's got to step up and play that role. Somebody's got to step up and play that in the secondary. There's a door open. Who walks through that? Maybe it's Justin Ross proving that he can be a guy that can play, punt coverage and play kickoff coverage and things like that, and therefore he would solidify his spot on the roster if they want to go to 7. It's going to be interesting because I do think, unlike other years where you're like, who is the 6th wide receiver even going to be? This is one to where you feel like there's 7 legit, NFL caliber wide receivers that you're not filling out the 5th and 6th roster spot at wide receiver just because you got to have it.
Yeah, and I can see that they're deeper than they are good, right? They're better than
the whole better than the sum of the parts type deal.
Yeah, exactly, at the top. And back to Watson, I couldn't believe it. I looked up his numbers from last year. He only caught 15 footballs, but for well over 300 yards. I mean, do that, Matt. That's over 20 yards per catch. I remember the big touchdown, reception against the Chargers.
Yep.
And maybe a couple of the big plays, but I didn't realize he was kind of like the big play guy last year, at least on average, for the number of passes he caught.
I mean, you could make a case that one of the biggest plays of the season was that Chargers touchdown reception.
That was big.
I mean, if they lose that game at home, what's the rest of the season look like? Right, but if they lose, if they lose that game to the Chargers and they're 1-1, I don't think they lose to the Colts the next week and sort of sleepwalk through that game. But you're talking about exchanging one of those wins and losses with a game against the Chargers and an AFC team. Like, who knows what happens the rest of the way with the Chiefs if they end up losing that game? I don't know, but they won it, and they only won it because Andy Reid kicked a field goal instead of going for it on fourth down, right, Josh?
That's exactly what happened. That is what happened verbatim. It's how we represented it. 100% accurate.
This works.
This is how this works.
Mick Schaefer's hanging out with us in St. Joe. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll get it a little learn, funniest best, coming up on the other side, presented by Pyramid Roofing. More right after this.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
weekend, Drake?
I learned about a lady from New Jersey named Linda Mancy, who is she's been charged with skimming $1.2 million from her employer. She does financial stuff for them. She's taken this money allegedly to buy Phillies tickets and to put in her son's prison commissary account. So maybe they'll be able to share that account. I'm not sure.
Can you share the account? Can you? Is he over 25? Is it like insurance? Can he still be on her commissary account?
I don't know. That's a lot of cigarettes.
How much money?
$1.2 million.
It's like 4 innings of Max Scherzer.
Oh, there you go.
Her son goes by the name Phillies-aholic.
Damn it, there it is. There it is. She was scamming to pay for her Phillies addiction and her son's commissary. Well,
couple fanatics.
Good cause.
Yeah,
good
no
cause. Besides that being funniest from the weekend, what was your funniest from the weekend, Josh?
I learned this and it made me laugh very much. So back in 2021, the New Zealand All Blacks embarrassed the United States rugby team with a final score of 104-14.
Really? What year was that?
2021. New Zealand's got great rugby, and the U.S. is trying to kind of like work its way into the national stage, I suppose.
Oh, man.
That's brutal.
And the All Blacks are phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the best of the best in a team, trying to get into the mix. I'm not laughing at that, though, because what I'm laughing at is revenge. Because this weekend, the U.S. did, in fact, get vengeance. Not in rugby, but in 12 and under baseball. The final score, USA 43, New Zealand 1!
Eat it.
Eat it! How about some corn-fed 12-year-olds, New Zealand? Rugby.
Thought it was odd when there was a ball hit the center field and the New Zealand team got together and then lifted the center fielder up to try to catch the ball together. It's weird. They all got down into a scrum ready to go, and the USA is like, we're just going to hit it to the outfield then. I don't know what you guys are doing there. This is weird.
In the Southern Hemisphere, you run the bases backwards, right?
Every time they picked up the ball, they just slammed it on the ground. It's a try.
The U.S. got
it's good.
The U.S. got vengeance on the All Blacks on behalf of the I Blacks, which is what I think every kid playing baseball right now has just got
great.
full war paint, right?
It's great. Take that, New Zealand.
Take that back down under.
Does that feel like it's do you think the USA rugby team feels good about that one?
I don't know that they feel avenged. Probably
got
not.
It. We got them back, guys. Yeah, take that. What was the funniest for you from the weekend, Mick?
I think it might have been from that same tournament. It looked like 12 and under baseball. There was an Australian player for the team Australia for the entire at bat. Basically sat down in a squat with his butt like 2 inches off the ground to what he hoped would shrink the strike zone to next to nothing, right? Think of Ricky Henderson times, 100, right? And it didn't work. The pitcher threw them all just right in the mid, and the umpire called them all strikes, even though they were passing by at like eye level for this kid basically sitting on the ground.
Just trying to be
who came up with that?
Eddie Goodell?
The Australians.
Scott Barrett.
He was sitting down under the strike zone.
Actually, I liked it.
You know what happens if this becomes a pun battle and we don't like where it ends, so I'm going to stick that right back in my pouch like a marsupial.
Drake, funniest for you?
I love it when new rules have unintended consequences. I find that very amusing. So Italy wanted to make sure that any contestants for the new Miss Italy contest for this year were female at birth. So that's the rule. You had to have been a female at birth. Nothing about now. So 100 men who were women at birth have
oh my goodness,
yes,
contestants in the Miss Italy competition.
Fantastic.
Oh my God.
Well, you know what?
They're following the rules.
Look, letter of the law, guys. Hello.
There's a loophole there.
Fantastic.
My funniest from the weekend is so my son goes to different camps throughout the year, and so at Barstow, like each week you can have a different camp. And so last week and the camps are like half day. So he goes to like 2 different camps during the day. One was a swimming camp,
okay.
and then he also had like what was called a brunch camp. So they would make and bake and cook food and everything. And I was like, that's really cool that you're doing these things, because he's talking about he's making all these different food. And I'm like, dude, I didn't know how to make food. I didn't know how to cook until I was out of college, pretty much. And he goes,
and you do now?
Yeah, well, I do actually. And he goes, really? Even a Pop-Tart? So it's. I'm not sure why you went there. We don't even have Pop-Tarts in our anywhere in the house.
Are they just cooking Pop-Tarts at this?
Wait, you don't have Pop-Tarts in your house?
We don't actually.
Why? You have something against Pop-Tarts?
No, we don't. We just don't really ever eat them. So like we don't have Pop-Tarts in the house. It's just odd that he went to like Pop-Tart, like not even a Pop-Tart. Like, well, no, that's not really making food. But also, what are you guys making at school? Like, did they teach you how to just push the toaster button? Did you just put it in the microwave? Like, he's talking about like they were making casseroles, they were making like French toast. He's learned how to crack an egg and all this other stuff. And now I'm wondering, like, did they just tell him to do that, to say that when they got home, and they were sitting around eating Pop-Tarts all day?
Gets home, Papa, I've just made the most wonderful quiche. And then smash cut to 4 hours earlier, just shoving just cold Pop-Tarts into his gullet like Cookie Monster.
I didn't really know how to make food until I was out of college. Not even a Pop-Tart? Well, that's
so. What counts as cooking? Because I can't cook. I making Pop-Tarts, that doesn't count as cooking?
It doesn't. No. Making cereal doesn't really count as cooking.
What about like putting a frozen pizza in the oven? Does that count as cooking?
It doesn't.
No.
That's
what
definitely
about
the wrong
making
thing.
Eggs?
That counts. That's a level of it. It might be like a rookie level.
What is there that needs to be there for it to constitute as cooking?
Combining ingredients.
Yeah. And
I'm
either
not
baking.
combining ingredients with eggs.
Are you salting them at least, Mick?
But baking or frying or
a little oil?
Yeah, or on the grill, something along those lines.
Walk me through, Mick. If you are making eggs just from A to B here, what's your step?
I put the eggs in the bed. I put some Pam on the pan.
Okay, that's an ingredient. Yep.
Is it panned or panned?
That
Pam?
counts as an ingredient.
You pan the pan.
Yep. That counts.
And then I put the eggs in.
Yep,
and
there you
then
go.
I scramble them. And I put them on a plate.
You probably crack them, or you're just putting the full eggs in the pan.
What if he did just throw them in there and just roll it around? Why is this not working? Every time I open it up, it's still just all runny. This thing. How do people get that? Do I smash it down?
Yeah. Do you scramble them after you've removed the shell from the concern here, Mick? Or
I do.
Okay, good. You're good then. Yeah,
that's cooking.
You don't add milk or salt or pepper?
Milk in eggs? No, I'm not a maniac.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do that with
I add salt and pepper. Yeah.
Okay, those are ingredients. You're
See, if I do scrambled eggs, I'll put the eggs in a different container first.
Does that count?
It does actually. That does. Now you're cooking. Now you're cooking. I put the eggs and the milk in a different container, and then whisk it, and then I put it onto the fryer.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I usually don't go to those steps, but I respect it as a real thing.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
But sometimes we'll put a little seasoning or maybe even like some jalapeno peppers on a frozen pizza before you put the pizza in. It's a little pro tip from me to you. It's not cooking though.
It's not cooking.
It's not, but it's adding more elements. I'm agreeing. It is not cooking.
But Mick making the eggs is cooking.
I think it is.
It's a 100 level course, but it's still cooking.
You watch The Bear, Mick. How are you this concerned about if Pop-Tarts are cooking?
I love The Bear. I would eat nothing on its menu.
The desserts are way too intricate for me to actually enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need couscous on
it. In one bite. Too.
That's right. It's a bite size dessert that costs probably $55.
I like the beef a lot more than the bear. I would have eaten at the diner with all the sandwiches a lot more than what they're serving out the bear.
No doubt about that.
Okay, so the dictionary definition of cooking here is the practice or skill of preparing food by combining, mixing, and heating ingredients. But I don't think you have to. If you're making a little gazpacho, you're not heating anything. You're using acid over some like raw meat. I think is that not cooking? Does cooking need heat?
I don't think cooking needs heat.
It might. I'm not sure. I do not have the answer here. I am searching for truth.
I think it probably needs heat. I'm going to say yes. I think cooking needs heat to some degree. Baking or
baking's in an oven, right? You can't bake without it being in a hot box of some sort.
And there's heat.
And cooking, I think, is usually like stovetop sort of stuff. Yeah.
Skillet,
If you make a
frying,
if you make a
microwave,
killer salad that's got a
grill.
bunch of ingredients, you've really nailed it.
I didn't cook
but you
a
haven't
salad.
heated anything. You haven't.
I didn't cook a salad.
I think you're probably right.
Oh, I cooked tonight. Would you get salad? I cooked up a salad for you. No,
You can whip up a salad.
Yeah,
you make
but I'm
up
not
a
gonna-
salad, but it's not
Yeah.
cooking.
Toss one.
You can toss one too, but you're not going to cook a salad. No, I think you got to apply heat.
That's what the dictionary says too. So I'm.
But you applied heat to the eggs, Mick. You're cooking.
You're a chef now.
There you go.
We've cooked up this harebrained segment.
Yeah.
Too many ingredients. Some would argue.
What was the best for you, Mick, from the weekend?
I discovered Doc Dogs. You guys know what Doc Dogs are?
No.
I went to Shields on Saturday, and in the parking lot, they had the Doc Dogs contest. You've probably seen it. It's where the dogs run off a dock into this gigantic pool of water, and they measure them, like how far
I've seen
they
it.
jump out,
Yes.
how high they jump to get a treat. And I'm sure there's some other contests. That's all we saw. It was awesome. These dogs were such great athletes, and you're timed, right? And so one of them, like I said, was you get the treat, and they kind of hang on this hook, and they raise the lever almost like a high jump. And so it was up to like 6 feet above the dock and out in the water. They had to go get it. This one dog would run up and at the very end just slam on the brakes and not go, and then run back.
No.
And then run back up, and it wasn't going to do it. You have a minute. And so, poor thing, didn't really know what's going on, and yada yada. And the handler's trying to work with it. And so they had music playing, they had an MC, and he's like, "All right, we got 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3," and at 3, the dog knew numbers or knew the countdown, turns and runs and leaps after teasing us like 10 to 12 times. It leaps up and grabs the thing 6 feet in the air and wins the competition. It was amazing.
This was at the parking lot of Shields?
I cheered like the Chiefs had just won the Super Bowl.
It's amazing. This was in the parking lot of Shields?
Parking lot of Shields.
Dude.
Dog.
We've watched that on TV.
Yeah.
I had no idea that we would have been there. We would have absolutely been there.
We stumbled upon it. I don't think this was a televised thing. I looked around.
I don't need the television. I want to be there in person to watch it. Like, we've actually watched the Doc Dogs on TV. My kids love it.
People brought their own dogs to watch, like, the unathletic dogs, like us as fans going to watch football players.
Like us. The dog's like, I got money on a Rover over there. Just signed a new contract with this handler.
We took Scout the dog to the Ren Fair last year, and I held her up for the horse and the jousting and everything, just so she could see what pure athleticism looks like. There might have been a dog race too, actually.
Oh man,
spectators rate spectators.
It was a real time, and I got some new dudes for like $20 marked down. It was a great Saturday.
Yeah, damn, I would have loved to go there. What was the best of your weekend, Drake?
Well, mine was animal related as well. I was driving south on Metcalf, just north of 435 here, and a bald eagle swooped down and picked up some sort of varmint. I think it was a burrowing animal, a mole or something. Shredded it up a little bit and then took off and flew next to my car, right outside my driver's side window for about 3 blocks.
No
way!
way!
Incredible, yeah. It was amazing. And this thing was huge and looked so powerful and awesome, and it was like it was in a movie or something, and it was just right outside my car window.
For like 3 blocks?
Yeah.
Huh.
Patriotic.
That's pretty awesome. It would have been cool if you got video of some sort.
Well, I thought about it, and then I was like, you know what? I'm really watching this bird instead of where I'm going. I probably shouldn't. Get my phone going
Add
too.
a third thing.
It's an odd explanation to the cops as to how you ended up wrecking.
Yeah, and I was already going a little bit slower than I probably should have, but it was really early in the morning, and I was just stunned by this beautiful thing.
They'll never believe that the eagle was flying next to me for 3 blocks.
Yes.
Oh, that's not gonna. Officer, how it happened? I don't want to sound like a crazy person. An alien came down and knocked my car off the road. That's what happened. I'm not going to tell them an eagle was flying next to my car. They're never going to believe that.
Officer, what happened was I was driving. There was a bald. I was really drunk. I don't know. I mean, whatever, man. I don't. There's no way.
I had a mistress in the front seat. Yeah. I mean, it just never believe the bald
I'm
eagle
the head coach
story.
of a football team. I'll explain later.
That's weird. There's 20 dirty hands all over the place. I'm not sure. This is weird. My best from the weekend was. Juliet is now got her big girl bed. So she got a big girl bed. So it's a family heirloom. So it's on my wife's side of the family. And my best from the weekend was finding out that the bed that Juliet is sleeping in now was her great-grandmother's bed, and the first bed she got, and it was a bed that she got after sleeping the first part of her life on bags of rice. Her great-grandmother.
Wow.
Back in the day, like in Paris, Tennessee, she would sleep on bags of rice, and this was the first bed that she got in her life. And now, some 100 years later, it's my daughter's bed, and I'm like, it's pretty awesome learning like family heirlooms and like the way that people would live, that she slept on bags of rice until she was like 8 years old and got a bed, finally.
So they didn't keep the bags of rice, they just kept the bed?
Yeah, which is weird. Well, my daughter's been sleeping on bags of rice, so we wanted to. It's a family tradition type deal. So
Yeah. Well, our kids slept on potatoes, but yeah, you know.
yeah, that's fine. My son complains there was a pea like 7 layers down, and he felt it in his back. It was weird. He read a book once. What was the best for you, Josh?
Also animal related, because Derek Nottie tweeted over the weekend that his dog had been lost, which I didn't say he lost his dog because he was in St. Joe, but it lost it somewhere in the Lee Summit area and put out the all hands there, and then a couple hours later tweeted out, "Hey everybody, thanks for all your help. My boy Saint, this is Derek Nottie's dog, not Colin Saunders' dog, so I don't know what's going on here, but the dog's name is Saint, has been found." And Derek Nottie reunited with his dog Saint. He's done a lot of good stuff with Casey Pet Project in his time in Kansas City, so it made me really sad to see that tweet at first, and then really happy to see that they found him by the end of the night.
Good news.
If any athlete loses anything, it is a call to action for everybody. Remember when Juju Smith-Schuster lost his bike in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
And somebody found it right away?
Yeah.
People will just drop whatever they're doing, leave the house, and go look for dog, bike, whatever.
Yeah. You go to Twitter, and the masses will then rally for you. Justin Reed needed to find the young fan that painted in the picture. The masses rallied, and now that young fan has a pair of autographed game-used cleats from Justin Reed, which is pretty awesome. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports
Training camp coverage presented by Barstool Sportsbook at Hollywood Casino, Bud Light, Greengrass Cattle Company, and Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park. Talking with Mick Schaefer. I mentioned the training camp sponsors, but Mick, Nicky Lopez traded for something named Taylor Hearn.
It's like, wasn't Ed Hearn involved in like the other worst trade in Royals history?
Might as well. I don't care. I said earlier today that they traded Nicky Lopez for an arm, like just an actual severed arm is what they got back, and they'll figure out where to put that arm and who to put it on. But yeah, they traded for a guy who the Braves acquired for some money for a couple of extra value meals.
Like a week ago, literally a week ago. Yeah, I don't get it. And look, I mean, it's not really the trading of Nicky Lopez. But it kind of is in that, like, look, you're a team that is in your worst season ever, which is saying a lot. Yeah. And you're winning a new stadium. You're winning any sort of excitement around the team. You're grasping at straws for anything. Outside of Bobby Witt, he's maybe your most popular player. And you trade him away for basically flyer on a guy, right? To try yet another, somebody off the salvage heap, right? Off the scrap heap. Actually, the Braves took him off the scrap heap. I don't know whatever heap the Royals are taking him off of. And look, hopefully he turns into something and be a part of something, but it doesn't look like a good trade. And being transactional is great and all, but, I mean, make it make sense.
Like, my issue is, like, not even the return. Like, whoever Taylor Hearn is, that's fine, whatever. It's sort of interchangeable. My issue is the strategy behind J.J. Picollo saying that they want to acquire somebody that would add to the major league team or near ready to the major league team, that this team is not ready to even look like a major league team yet. So why are you wanting guys that are near major league ready? This is just... It's foolish, and they are lying to themselves, Mick, if they think they're close to competing and they need guys that can play at a major league level right now.
And by the way, he's been opted to Omaha as well. He's 29 years old, and when they compete, how old will they be? 35? I don't know.
Roughly.
Well, competing in 6 years, I have no idea. But no, it didn't make sense. Nicky was great in a lot of ways. He was a really good ball player, right? He's not like a cornerstone or anything like that, but a guy that can do a lot for you, and he's a stand-up guy, great clubhouse guy. I'm going to miss him.
Yep. Mick, you're the man. Appreciate it, sir.
See you, boys.
Later. All right, that'll wrap up this Monday edition. Do want to pass along a little information, news from Denver's camp. Tim Patrick left camp today. They're saying that is an Achilles injury, so it looks like he is going to be lost for the season. Back-to-back years. He got hurt in training camp and lost for the season last year. ACL, this one looks like an Achilles. The program comes up next right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
At Central Bank, we know every journey and spark of inspiration has a starting point. It's practice, persistence, and the support of an entire community. As a proud community banking partner of Sporting KC, Central Bank is there for every step of the journey because we believe